Chapter 928. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated, and he immediately sneered. They both have a common enemy, which is me. Red Hair Shanks and Drago are not people who wait for death. It's natural for them to choose another way out. It's normal for them to collude with each other to deal with me. The conspiracy of Drago and Red Hair Shanks, and even other people participated in it, was also within Dustless's expectations. No one would sit still and wait for death. It was normal for them to even give up their grudges and work together with Blackbeard in the past. There was no eternal grudge, only eternal interests. Blackbeard also regarded Dustless as his biggest enemy, so it was normal for them to go together. In fact, as Dustless thought, Blackbeard and Red Hair Shanks had contact during this period. Do you think you can stop me by joining forces? It's as ridiculous as the sun rising from the west tomorrow. Gao Yang's mouth showed contempt, and Dustless sneered at the approach of Yonko for emperors and the revolutionary army. It's all young master's fault. Hancock rolled her eyes and complained. If she was Red Hair Shanks, Manchidi, Drago and others, she would choose the same approach. After all, with a godlike enemy, there was no other way but to join forces. That's because they brought it upon themselves. This is the price of going against me. Dustless's murderous intent was exposed, and his whole body was filled with a dangerous aura. His pair of deep eyes instantly became as cold as a beast. Red Hair Shanks opposed me more than 10 years ago. Later, I cut off his arm. I thought that kid would be more sensible, but now it seems that he didn't realize his shortcomings. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Since he was so insensible, Dustless could only crush him. By the way, young master, as if thinking of something, Hancock frowned. A few days ago, Clia Saint suddenly visited, and you happened to be away from Mariehua. Dustless was confused when he heard that. He scratched his head and didn't remember that he knew this person. Then he asked blankly, I don't seem to have any connection with this person, especially since there is a holy behind her name. She should be a celestial dragon. I don't have such a person. Suddenly, a beautiful golden figure appeared in his mind. Wu Chen suddenly thought of his fiancée of more than 10 years. Long golden hair cascaded down his back like a waterfall. His eyes were pure and flawless like gems. His perfect face was like a masterpiece of the heavens, a work of the gods. He was wearing a slender holy sword, and his aura was noble and pure. Every inch of his body was abnormally perfect. That's strange. Why did she suddenly come looking for me? It's been more than 10 years. I thought that Clia had already died. Also, she hasn't come looking for me for more than 10 years. I'm afraid that she's already old. Dustless waved his hand and said in annoyance, Tell her not to look for me in the future. Anyway, the two of them didn't have any connection. They had only met once, and Dustless almost killed her at that time. There was no need to think about the relationship between the two of them. Young master, you worry too much. Clia, holy, is the same as the young man. Her appearance hasn't deteriorated. She still maintains her original appearance. Hancock smiled mysteriously. Just her. Dustless had a strange expression on his face when he heard that. Chapter 929. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Durag Sabo, the current Yonko, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Tendo Uchiha Madara. A few days ago, Dustless accidentally controlled Uchiha Madara to encounter Shanks. As a result, this guy happened to say something about an alliance to deal with the huge crisis brought by the Marine. Curious, Dustless also readily agreed. That's why today's meeting was held. Why is this guy in this meeting? I didn't get any notice in advance. In the temporary building, Blackbeard took the opportunity to attack Uchiha Madara. His body was full of high density and terrifying hostility. He didn't have a good impression of Uchiha Madara. Oh, you didn't get any notice in advance, but I knew it a long time ago. You're just an insignificant person. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara smiled, giving people a feeling of being quite approachable. But in Blackbeard's ears, it was particularly harsh. I'm also very surprised. Uchiha Madara stared at Blackbeard with a playful gaze, and immediately sneered, showing an expression of shame. I didn't expect to meet a cat or a dog like you, bad luck. Hearing this, Blackbeard's old face twitched. He naturally understood what Uchiha Madara meant. A few years ago, he was defeated by Uchiha Madara, and the battle was almost one-sided. Blackbeard was crushed and beaten by Uchiha Madara. At that time, he was like a baby in swaddling clothes, without any power to fight back. The two sides were not in the same dimension at all. I'm not what I used to be. After that, Blackbeard released an awe-inspiring and overbearing momentum, and the whole person's momentum was monstrous. Boom. Outside the room, even if he didn't have Haushika Haki at this moment, endless darkness spewed out from his body, covering the sky and the earth, and the void within a radius of tens of kilometers was dim. It wasn't just that. The boundless horizon was covered in cracks, and it was riddled with holes. It was a complete mess. The cracks spread out without any pattern, and it seemed as if they were about to swallow the entire sky. The ability of Tremor Fruit, Blackbeard obviously practiced to the extreme. In the past 2 years, he also made rapid progress. Bang, bang, bang. The cold wind suddenly hit, and Blackbeard's momentum shattered the window. Not only that, the whole earth and the house swayed with his frequency. Do you want to fight? Uchiha Madara asked indifferently with a cold smile on his face. His casual words ignited the flames in Blackbeard's heart. His entire being was like a barrel of gunpowder that had been ignited, filled with explosive danger. Blackbeard wasn't an idiot. From this casual sentence, he knew that he was being looked down upon by this guy again. Since becoming a Yonko, he has always been arrogant. This was the first time he was ridiculed. This old thing will never amount to anything great. In the end, he can only be one of the 4 emperors. Two's Uchiha Madara, Dustless Blackbeard, and Blackbeard's has made no progress in other. Blackbeard, if you want to fight, I have no right to stop it, but I will stand on his side. Pointing to Uchiha Madara, Red Hair Shanks said very wisely. Me too, I will stand on his side. Taking a deep look at Red Hair Shanks, the reticent Durag said. You want to work together to deal with me? Blackbeard vomited blood, and cursed in his heart. He was also a smart person, and he naturally knew what this meant. Not only Uchiha Madara looked down on him, but Durag and Red Hair Shanks also looked down on him. In the troubled world, the strong are respected, and the two of them turned to Uchiha Madara because they agreed that Uchiha Madara was stronger than Blackbeard. Otherwise, Red Hair Shanks and Durag may have teamed up with Blackbeard to deal with Uchiha Madara. In the end, in this world, the strong people have the final say, and in the end they think that Uchiha Madara has a better future. It's all to deal with the Marine. It's not too late to talk about personal grievances later. Knocking lightly on the table, Durag's voice was soft, but full of reason. Giving Uchiha Madara a fierce look, the angry Blackbeard restrained his anger. Even if Durag and Red Hair Shanks really scared him, Blackbeard didn't dare to act rashly. You only have one life, and if you lose the bet, it's gone. Yes, this time I came up to discuss how to deal with Royce South. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, laughed and continued to control Uchiha Madara. I recently got information that Royce South is in Dressrosa. We should ambush him immediately. Otherwise, when he returns to the Marine headquarters or Mariehua, it will be difficult to kill him. That's right, this is indeed an opportunity. The Marine headquarters is full of strong people, and Mariehua is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Blackbeard rarely agreed with Uchiha Madara's point of view, bowing his head and agreeing. Being beaten by Dustless in succession has become his shadow, and this thorn in his flesh must be pulled out. Chapter 930. Shanks and Durag looked at each other, and could see the cautiousness and hesitation in each other's eyes. They both felt like they were playing with fire. Although Dustless is only an admiral, his strength is obvious to all, far beyond the level of an admiral, even far beyond the Yonko for emperors. After all, Dustless played Whitebeard, who is recognized as the strongest man in the end. Even some pirates in the New World jokingly said that Dustless is God in a marine cape. He has become an absolute existence. Perhaps there is some exaggeration, but Shanks and Durag agree that although this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, attacking rashly will definitely hurt them. I also firmly oppose it. At this moment, a powerful voice suddenly came, and a young man with a long sword and a hat suddenly appeared, looking at Uchiha Madara and Blackbeard with dissatisfaction. I know the strength of Royce South. It is unfathomable, and it is the territory of Doflamingo. Don't underestimate that Shichibukai. He is not easy to deal with. The nickname of Sea Rogue is not for nothing. The man said vigilantly, and when he mentioned Doflamingo, his eyes flashed with hatred. This remark immediately attracted the agreement of Shanks and Durag. And even Blackbeard, who advocated the attack, was slightly prepared. Dressrosa has been run by Doflamingo for many years, and it has long become a tiger's den. This little guy actually came to join in the fun. Dustless of Dressrosa frowned, and immediately spat out cold air. There is a road to heaven, but you don't take it, and there is no door to hell, but you throw yourself into it. It seems that if I don't kill him, I will not succeed in fooling them to go to Dressrosa to die. I wanted to send you to Infinite Tsukuyami to dream, but since you want to die early, I will fulfill your wish. Uchiha Madara's calm eyes flashed, exuding a red light and coldness, and he stared at the young man with a hat, Telejaffer Law. His body finally turned into a shadow and rushed out. Phew! Tendo Uchiha Madara's attack shocked everyone. The scene was dead silent. Everyone looked at Uchiha Madara with surprise. Of course, there are some who have sharp eyes and quick hands. Whoosh! A black shadow followed closely behind him and rushed out at high speed. Clang! A roar sounded, and suddenly two figures flashed on the empty ground in front of Law. One of them stopped Uchiha Madara's attack. Shanks, what do you mean by this? Do you want to be my enemy? Madara asked as he increased the force in his hand and forced Shanks back a step or two. The red-haired Shanks frowned slightly and immediately said without backing down. Law is a guest I invited, not only him but also the other Shichibukai. As Akagami's voice fell, a man dressed as a clown with a huge red nose also walked in. It was Buggy, one of the current Shichibukai. This group of bastards, they are indeed not good people. Red Shersons red Shanks is so shameless he read Shanks Rua Shanks. His heart is terrible. Our order is to overthrow the world government, not to deal with a marine admiral. Seeing everyone's eyebrows pulled on Dustless, Durag had to stand up and say his point of view. Hearing this, Red Hair Shanks smiled calmly and said, You may not know that Lewis South is a marine admiral, and he also has the identity of a celestial dragon. It is natural for the Revolutionary Army to deal with him. After thinking about it, Durag nodded silently. Get out of my way, I must kill this kid. Uchiha Madara's killing intent soared to the sky, and a powerful momentum broke out of his body, making people breathless. He is our ally. Shanks strengthened his tone and refused to back down. Law was invited by him. If he killed him, where would his face go? Uchiha Madara's refusal to back down made him feel extremely puzzled and asked, If you want to kill someone, at least give everyone a suitable reason. Everyone looked at Tendo Uchiha Madara with recognition. This, Dressrosa's Dustless stagnated, and his eyes changed rapidly. He scratched his head and couldn't think of a suitable reason. At the moment, the chakra in his body erupted, and he planned to force Law. But a light suddenly appeared in his mind. This kid, he has always been Doflamingo's subordinate. He must have been sent by Doflamingo to spy on us. Regardless of the consequences, Uchiha Madara's words were filled with dirty water. Hearing this, Law's thoughts were obviously messed up. He was speechless, and there was a brief silence. After a while, he immediately explained. I used to be Doflamingo's subordinate, but Poochie. The cold light came like the speed of light, and in the blink of an eye, Law's chest was easily crushed and his heart was crushed in one fell swoop. It turned out to be him. Uchiha Madara was also surprised to see the figure behind Law. He didn't expect that he would kill Law. Chapter 931. Not only was Tendo Uchiha Madara stunned, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard were also very surprised. Looking at the huge bloody hole in Law's chest and the shattered heart, everyone was stunned. I'm sorry, young man. Although your name also has D in it, and you even saved that silly boy Luffy during the War of the Best, please forgive me. As for the reason for killing you, Royce South's strength is beyond imagination. Maybe you were tampered with by him, but you still don't know it. I used to be the same. The one who gave Law a fatal blow and destroyed his heart in one fell swoop. Manchi di Dorag, Luffy's biological father. This is not fair. Law, who reacted, roared loudly, looking at the dagger that was inserted into his chest. He looked back and stared at Dorag, whose face was full of guilt, and roared loudly. If it was your son today, don't tell me that you would do the same. After that, Law's pupils dilated to the largest extent in his life. As long as Dorag was lying, he would be able to see it. Even if it was Luffy standing in front of me, I would not hesitate to raise the butcher's knife. Dorag's tone was very firm, and he said unwaveringly, what we are carrying is the whole world. Even if it's my son, if he's suspected of being in cahoots with Royce South or Doflamingo, I'll still kill him without hesitation. These cold-blooded and ruthless words shocked everyone by Dorag's decisiveness. Cold-blooded animal. Seeing this unexpected scene, Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed. Although he could understand Dorag's indifference and impartiality as a leader, especially in this important period, but if it was Dustless, he might not be able to do it. However, I have to thank Dorag for helping me get rid of this eyesore. Since you didn't hesitate to offend Red Hair Shanks to help me, hee. When I release the infinite Tsukuyomi, I will make you the king of the world as a token of my gratitude. Dustless smiled sinisterly. I curse you, despicable and shameless bastard, to be torn into pieces. And you too. Aware of the rapid loss of vitality, Law roared angrily and unwillingly. He didn't expect to be killed so inexplicably. He still had a lot of dreams to fulfill. If you're dead, then you're dead. Why are you still struggling? It's hard to even leave your corpse intact. He strode forward and took out an extremely sharp kunai. A cold light splashed in the void. Then Luo Jian's head was separated from his body. He was killed like a dog. This brat. I helped you get rid of your enemy, Doflamingo, and avenge your most respected Corazon. Yet, not only are you not grateful to me, you're even cursing me. You deserve this fate. Dustless slandered him. This bastard was also courting death. This luxurious banquet originally did not have a stage that belonged to him. Since he wanted to join in, Dustless could only send him to heaven in advance. Hey, this guy is the Shichibukai. The government can be our informant. His strength is also good. He's a powerful fighting force. Looking at Law, who was completely dead, Red Hair Shanks sighed. This person has died, and it's impossible for him to fall out with Dorag and Tendo Uchiha Madara. I can only hope that he has a connection with the dangerous man Doflamingo. Dorag said with a blank expression. At the same time, he calmly returned to his original position as if nothing had happened. Yes. Tendo Uchiha Madara also echoed and deliberately raised his voice to remind. Even if spying information, isn't there still the Shichibukai? After Uchiha Madara's reminder, everyone's eyes looked at the man behind Red Hair Shanks. They were all surprised, thinking of his identity and past experience, and then nodded. The focus of several pairs of eyes was the clown buggy. I still don't agree with attacking Dressrosa. Royce South, Dustless, and Doflamingo are too dangerous. If we attack rashly, we will automatically die. Dorag said very stubbornly. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, he has been hiding for so many years, and he can't suddenly expose himself like this. Red Hair Shanks also nodded immediately. This group of guys. It seems that if we don't make some movements, it's impossible to make them take the initiative to die. Looking at several people, Tendo Uchiha Madara thought. Manchi D. Dorag and Red Hair Shanks are the kind of people who are extremely careful. It's impossible to make them die without risking anything. Being too strong is also a sin. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed with deep helplessness. Sometimes being too strong is indeed a sin. Your words are too unfair to those who have been killed by you. If Whitebeard knows, he will definitely jump out of hell to find trouble with you, young master. Hancock, who has been standing beside Dustless, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dustless's words were really too hurtful. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded. Uchiha Madara raised his eyes and looked at the pirates rushing over. After seeing the things on their bodies, he breathed a sigh of relief. feeling as if the clouds were lifted and the sky was clear. In the end, no matter how they change, it seems that they can't escape my control. Chapter 932. A man with a flattering face, a little famous, one of the members of the Blackbeard pirates, Balsas. Dustless recognized him. In the future, he was the one who said that he would rob Ace's relic, the flame fruit from Luffy. Now, even if I don't want to go to Dressrosa, I have to walk right into the trap. With a faint smile, Tendo Uchiha Madara sat back in his seat. Even if he was just a corpse, he was still leisurely sipping his tea. Quietly looking at the newspaper in Balsa's hand, Uchiha Madara's face flashed with relief. Captain, oh no, Admiral Titch. Balsa's face was tangled. Since Blackbeard took the position of Yonko for emperors, and inherited the legacy of the former Whitebeard, he disliked the nickname of Blackbeard, and called himself Admiral. What's the point of being so reckless? Blackbeard glared at Balsas with dissatisfaction. He felt extremely embarrassed. Right now, there were 3 Yonko for emperors gathered here, including himself. However, this brat's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He had thrown his face in front of his arch-enemy, Red Hair Shanks. Maybe you're more surprised than Balsas. Looking at Blackbeard playfully, Uchiha Madara continued to drink alone. Just as Uchiha Madara guessed, after receiving the newspaper in Balsa's hand, Blackbeard's face was dull, his rough mouth wide enough to stuff a fist. That bastard Doflamingo. Is he crazy? Staring at the newspaper, Blackbeard's eyes were bloodshot and almost fell out. After confirming that he wasn't dizzy from old age, he almost roared. His sharp and numb voice was quite like a eunuch's. Seeing Blackbeard lose his composure, Shanks and Durag squeezed their faces together, puzzled. It must be explosive news to make Whitebeard, one of the Yonko for emperors, lose his composure. Out of curiosity, they also picked up the extra newspaper, and so did Buggy. It's okay if you don't read the content of the newspaper, but as soon as you read it, your expressions were all petrified. Their trembling arms grabbed the newspaper, and even tore it uncontrollably. Don't be surprised. Uchiha Madara laughed contemptuously. He immediately picked up the newspaper and glanced at it, pretending to be surprised. That idiot Doflamingo actually used the ancient weapon Pluto as the reward for the arena champion? These words were like water ripples that brushed past everyone's ears. He raised his voice on purpose. We should immediately head to Dressrosa and snatch the Pluto design blueprint. The future revolution requires the protection of a world-destroying weapon like the Pluto. Commander Titch, send troops to wipe out Dressrosa of Doflamingo. I'm willing to be the vanguard. The position of the king of the world is right in front of us. Shanks, we must obtain the Hades blueprint. Once we create the ancient weapon, we can take revenge and destroy that despicable demon, Louis Mail. The appearance of Pluton's blueprint ignited the emotions of all the pirates. Their faces were full of fanaticism and yearning. They couldn't wait to grow wings and flatten Dressrosa. The crew of the Akagami Red Hair Pirates and the Blackbeard Pirates, including the Revolutionary Army cadres brought by Dorag, all encouraged their bosses to seize the Pluto design blueprint. In this way, you have to go even if you don't want to. With a smile, Uchiha Madara closed his eyes comfortably. This group of people had no right to choose. From the beginning, they were destined to be led by the nose. Conspiracy, this must be a conspiracy. Doflamingo can't take out this kind of thing for no reason. I remember that kid. He is the most cunning. There must be a problem. Yes, this blueprint must be fake. He is the Shichibukai. He must have colluded with the government to trap us. Without even thinking about it, he directly rejected the Pluto design blueprint in the newspaper. And the one who denied it was Blackbeard, who looked like he had seen a ghost. The data doesn't seem to be fake. If this is true, Akagami Red Hair murmured after careful confirmation, revealing a deep greed and covetousness in his words. Just like what his vice-captain Ben Beckman had said, after obtaining Pluto and creating it, the Navy government and Lois Nandon would be nothing but a joke. One shot of destruction. Although I don't know if it is Pluto's design blueprint, one thing is certain. This is definitely an unprecedented super battleship design blueprint. The speaker was the Revolutionary Army Senior brought by Dorag. The Revolutionary Army is different from the poor pirates. In recent years, they have plundered many professional shipbuilding masters. You have a little vision. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, was relieved. He was really afraid that this group of bumpkins wouldn't recognize it. After all, it is a legendary weapon. So what? I can be sure that this is a conspiracy. Blackbeard still sneered. Such a superficial plan is too obvious. I know it may be a conspiracy. Dorag and Shank's faces were extremely ugly. There was no need to think about it. Doflamingo took out the Pluto design blueprint. But what can they do? Can they not go if it is a conspiracy? Obviously not, in case the world government gets it. Akagami, red hair, and Dorag, red hair, were pale. Even if they knew that this was a conspiracy, they had to go. Once the world government gets Pluto's design, they will definitely be destroyed. That kid is so good at playing. Blackbeard, who had figured it out, vomited blood. His messy hair was like a bird's nest with crows entrenched in it. This was an open conspiracy from beginning to end. After not seeing each other for a while, Doflamingo's methods of scheming had improved by leaps and bounds. But no one knows that Doflamingo at this moment has been made one of the 6 paths by Dustless. Chapter 933. Blackbeard was tense and experienced, and he spat out hot air waves from his nostrils. He tried to find a reasonable explanation to comfort himself, but he couldn't find an excuse after thinking for a long time. Unable to be comforted, he was angry and felt worse than being slapped a few times. The dignified Yonko for emperors was schemed against by a Shichibukai for the time being. Even if he knew that this was a trap, he still insisted on going in. The flame of grievance almost burned his head. That bastard is smarter than before. He set up a trap that even if we knew it was a conspiracy, we still had to go into it. Damn Doflamingo. Red hair Shanks's face was also extremely ugly. There were blue veins on both sides of his forehead, and his iron fists were clenched tightly. It doesn't matter if he is schemed against by other Yonko for emperors. Anyway, everyone is at the same level, and he can't fight back. But he was inexplicably slapped by Doflamingo, and he couldn't fight back. Not only that, but he was also led by the nose by him. This has exceeded the limit of what he can tolerate. You are just part of my plan. The actors are far from enough. You only represent one piece and the Revolutionary Army. You can only be regarded as the second and third protagonist. The first protagonist is not you. Through the sight of Uchiha Madara, Dustless and Dressrosa smiled calmly. Pluton can attract the attention of forces all over the world, and One Piece and the Revolutionary Army are only part of it. Not only the few of us, but those forces who know the value of the King of Hell, will also rush to Dressrosa and obtain the King of Hell and the world. Who can resist such temptation? You can't, I can't, the whole world can't. Manchi D, Dorag said heavily, and sweat stains came out of his temples. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of the world government, including the Marine, will certainly not be able to escape the temptation of Pluton. They should take out all their high-end battle power and fight back. It is impossible for Pluton's design to fall into our hands. Suddenly rolling his eyes, Drago's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. That bastard Doflamingo, he's determined to drag the whole world down with him. No matter who gets the Pluto blueprint, they will suffer a great loss. You're right. Tendo Uchiha Madara agreed, and immediately put on a cautious expression. Don't forget that the celestial dragon named Louis South is still in Dressrosa. If we want to take Pluton, we will have to fight him. We must bring all the elites to barely defeat him. It's true that all the elite pirates should be concentrated. When they confront each other, they are bound to encounter the Marines, and even the world government. Maybe even the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will personally take action. Everyone nodded and agreed with Uchiha Madara's words. In the face of a godlike enemy, they must come up with a godlike formation to deal with it. Of course, no one could understand the meaning behind Uchiha Madara's words. Moreover, even if it's a trap, so what? After obtaining the Pluto's design blueprint, the history of the entire world will be written by us. Uchiha Madara's words led everyone to fall into a real dream. In a trance, they saw the evil rule that destroyed the world government, standing at the top of the world and being praised by all living beings. Dorag and the others, who came back to their senses, looked at each other. In this case, it's better to fight with all their strength. These troublesome ants have finally been dealt with. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, breathed a sigh of relief. It was really a laborious thing to gather them together. First, I will use Pluton to kill the most threatening group of people, and then I will use Infinite Tsukuyomi to finish it off. Then I will use Chakra to connect all the humans to the tree. In this way, it should be no problem to bear new chakra fruits. Even if they can't reach the same level as me, it should be no problem to prolong their life and keep their youth forever. Recalling the girls in the system, Dustless sighed a little tiredly. After working so hard for so many years, in the end it was all for them. Now that everything is about to end, the shackles that have always been with him are gone, and it's particularly comfortable. As for the guilt of Infinite Tsukuyomi, bringing the whole world into the Genjutsu world, Dustless doesn't have this feeling. Being oppressed by pirates is oppressing, being exploited by the world government is still being exploited. Anyway, it's just a distorted world. In this case, it's better to go to the dream world together and be their ideal selves. They should thank me, the creator. In the end, Dustless came to such a conclusion. Following Dressrosa's announcement that the final victor of the arena would receive the Hades design, the people of the entire world were like sharks that had smelled blood, rushing to Dressrosa one after another. Just the design blueprint ignited the emotions of the whole world. The forces that knew what Pluton was naturally couldn't wait, and the ignorant people who didn't know what Pluton was laughed at. In short, the whole world was shocked by the sudden movement of Doflamingo. At this moment, a major event happened in the Marine headquarters. The Marine generals were also divided into two factions. At first glance, there seemed to be signs of division. Chapter 934. The Marine, as the world's largest organization, received the news earlier than the Yonko, for emperors, and held an emergency meeting for the first time. Because of the special reasons this time, only the high-level leaders with real power were gathered. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After getting Pluton's design, it's not a problem to build it with the government's ability. We can use Pluton to end the era of the Great Pirate. We must rush to Dressrosa. I don't need to think about it to know that this is a conspiracy. Who would call out such a precious thing like Pluton's design? The Marine can just watch the fire from the shore, and calmly watch the pirates fighting over the blueprints kill each other. This old man firmly does not agree to mobilize all forces to attack Dressrosa. Within a few hours, the meeting of the Marine headquarters was centered around these two topics. The one who agreed to attack Dressrosa was naturally the radical Akainu, Sakazuki, and the one who was against it was Admiral Fujitora, who was not weak. Fujitora, make it clear to me that the Marine Fleet Admiral is Sakazuki, not Fujitora. Hot magma rose from his hand and turned the cigar into ashes. Akainu sat in the seat that used to belong to Sengoku. After being the Fleet Admiral for a while, he didn't feel the slightest difference. Instead, he felt more and more headache. Especially the Admiral in front of him, who often fought with Akainu. The contradiction between the two sides was no less than Akainu and Akiji. Fujitora was even more excessive than Akiji. He didn't care about the Fleet Admiral's face, and often stood up to disgust him. My eyes are blind, but my heart is not blind. I know that the Fleet Admiral is Sakazuki, Fujitora said in a calm tone, and immediately a sentence directly made Akainu tremble. If I were the Fleet Admiral, you would have been kicked out of the Marine, and it would not be your turn to order people around. Hearing this, Akainu's old face turned black, and he immediately took a deep breath and tightly suppressed the flames in his chest. First, the current situation is special, and he can't directly remove the position of Admiral Fujitora. Second, he has the support of Sengoku, heir and veteran Marines like Garp. He often goes against Akainu without scruples. Sakazuki, attacking Dressrosa rashly is a risky move. You know the nature of Doflamingo. Fujitora lowered his voice and lowered his posture. Akainu is also a Marine Fleet Admiral, and the most basic face has to be given. What a joke. Akainu sneered at this. What's the use of taking risks? So what if it was a trap? Do you want to watch Pluton's design fall into the hands of the pirates? There is news that the pirate leaders of the New World, the Yonko for emperors, are showing signs of joining forces. If we are late, the Pluton design blueprint will be theirs. In the future, the New World will not have a place for the Navy. The Marine admirals nodded silently. Akainu's words were not alarmist. If the Marine gets Pluton's design, waiting for Pluton to be born in the future, the Marine and the world government will be the first unlucky ones. But this is Doflamingo's scheme. If we go, we will definitely fall into his trap. Fujitor smiled and argued. Even an idiot could see that this was a huge trap. Doflamingo had dug a deep pit. The Marines clearly knew that this was a trick, but they still jumped in without hesitation. It was really a brainless behavior. That makes sense. There are also many Marine generals who think that Fujitora is right. The two of you, please don't argue. The old voice stopped the two quarreling men, and was surprisingly useful. Akainu and Fujitor immediately stopped the war of words. Looking closely, it was Vice Admiral Tsuru, the most senior Marine at present. This kind of thing has made a lot of noise all over the world. The Pluton design blueprint has exceeded the scope of Marines management. In fact, it is useless for us to discuss such a big matter. We can't make the decision at all. The right to speak is not in our hands. The five of Mariehua are probably thinking about how to deal with it now. I believe that it won't be long before their orders will be passed to us, so there is no need to talk about quarreling. From beginning to end, we Marines don't have the final say. After saying a lot of words in a row, Vice Admiral Tsuru was also a little tired. Looking at Akainu and Fujitor, Vice Admiral Tsuru's old face was gloomy. It was extremely difficult for the two to sit quietly together and talk about plans, let alone cooperate. Both sides were stubborn and aggressive at the same time, and no one was willing to admit defeat, causing the current embarrassing situation of the Marines. The entire Marine was faintly divided into two factions. Then wait for the call from above. Akainu could only swallow the flames in his stomach. If he could, he would like to beat Fujitor now. This old guy is really annoying. This kind of scene is not the first or second time. Every time he makes the fleet admiral embarrassed. Sometimes he even becomes the target of public criticism. He doesn't have the quality of an admiral at all. Then wait for the call from Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Fujitor heard this and rested silently. Rumble. About half an hour later, the black den mushi, which had remained silent, suddenly rang. This was usually used to contact Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Sakazuki, it's me. On the other side of the den mushi, there was a powerful voice of one of the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Akainu heard this and opened his mouth. When he was about to ask the Marine what to do, the news from den mushi shocked him. Not only Akainu, but also Fujitor, who was still angry, and Vice Admiral Tsuru, including other Marine Vice Admirals, also had the same expression. Chapter 935. A group of Marines was directly petrified, their eyes widened, and their faces were full of disbelief. Even Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was usually the calmest, had a dreamy expression. Even if it wasn't for the black den mushi and the voice of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, she would have thought that this was someone else's pretense. Well, is there any problem? On the other side, Gorosei, 5 elder stars, heard that Akainu didn't answer for a long time, and asked with a little doubt. Akainu looked stiff and looked around, and all the Marines nodded. There is no problem in arresting Royce South, but a Marine admiral was inexplicably arrested. If you don't give a suitable reason, it will be difficult to convince the Marines. That guy killed Whitebeard during the War of the Best, and was called a hero by the entire Marine. There are many people who admire him inside the Marine. Akainu said awkwardly. Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is simply too much. The content of the den mushi is the arrest of the current Marine Admiral Royce South. Even Akainu, who has a will like steel, is dizzy at this moment. Maybe this may directly pull the whole world into the abyss. Royce South, isn't that guy a celestial dragon? Why does the government want to arrest him? Fujitora asked with deep confusion in his words. Arresting a powerful celestial dragon for no reason, he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Reason? This kind of thing is already known to the whole world. Gorosei, 5 elder stars. On the opposite side of the Den Mushi couldn't suppress the flame. Like an angry lion, he roared loudly. The black hand behind the scenes supporting Doflamingo is Royce South. Hearing this, all the Marines' faces turned sharply. They all clenched their fists and looked extremely dignified. The tone of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, has no room for negotiation. This reason can indeed arrest Dustless. But Akainu was still frowning. After listening to the explanation of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, his whole person was not relaxed but became more and more deep. The status of celestial dragons is higher than Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Even if Royce South is arrested, it will not be their turn. It is the CP0 who is looking for trouble with Royce South. What does it have to do with Gorosei, 5 elder stars? This is obviously overstepping their authority and meddling in other people's business. Akainu thought hard in his heart, and he couldn't figure it out even if he scratched his head. Just do as I say. Your navy will immediately mobilize all your forces and immediately encircle Dressrosa's lowest south. Don't worry about anything else. After that, without waiting for Akainu to answer, he continued to say, Royce South's strength is extraordinary. We have already thought about the bounty. 2 billion berries. He immediately hung up the Den Mushi. What do you have to say now? Staring at Fujitora, Akainu asked in a stern tone. Hearing this, Fujitora was silent and his face was gloomy. He had a bad premonition in his heart. The Gorosei inexplicably ordered the Marine to capture Royce South must not be a good thing. Are we arresting the celestial dragons suspected of insubordination? After a while, Fujitora suddenly said. Everyone, including Akainu and the other 2 admirals, Green Ox and Kizaru, had unnatural expressions. The world government is the boss of the Marine, and Tenryubito is the boss behind the scenes of the world government. He was indeed offending his superiors. Although I don't know the reason, it seems that I can only obey orders. To be honest, if I can, I really don't want to be enemies with that horrible man. Maybe our end will be worse than Dustless. Kizaru said helplessly. He was afraid of avoiding Dustless. At present, this is the only thing we can do. Although he is a former colleague, it is a bit unfair to do this now, but it is the duty of the Marine to obey orders. Gather all the elites of the Marine and immediately rush to Dressrosa to flatten Royce South. Akainu waved his hand and continued to order. Also, immediately expel that guy from the Marine and classify him as a pirate with a bounty of 2 billion berries. Due to the propaganda of the Marine, Dustless was kicked out of the Marine. In just a few hours, the news spread all over the world at a miraculous speed. The whole world seemed to have been hit by an unprecedented tsunami, which made the pirates and Marines all over the world, including other forces, dizzy. Not only did they expel me from the Tenryubito identity, but they also deprived me of the Admiral's identity. This kind of thing can't be done by Akainu, only the 5 old guys. Inside Dressrosa's palace, compared to the turbulent world outside, Dustless's place was peaceful. He was enjoying afternoon tea as usual. Hancock massaged Dustless's legs without changing her expression. Perona still massaged Dustless's shoulders with an unhappy face, and Califa stood beside Dustless like a javelin. In short, nothing has changed. Compared with the safe and sound Dustless, Mariejuar at this moment is another scene, like the Avicii Hell, the most bloody and violent side since the establishment of the world government more than 800 years ago. Mariejuar, which usually looks like a peaceful paradise, is now a sea of blood. Chapter 936. At night, today's Mariejuar was very different from the past, and even the atmosphere was extremely strange. Mariejuar's port was completely sealed. Ah, bastard, do you want breakfast? Mere human beings dare to attack Tenryubito. Go and call Marine's Admiral to come over and execute these bastards. The damn Gorosei wants to kill us all? This is blasphemy. We must burn them in the future. That group of Marines is indifferent. Under the black night sky of Mariejuar, countless black figures rushed and slammed, slaughtering Tenryubito unscrupulously. Their methods were extremely cruel and bloody, and they were all fatal. Chasing the fleeing celestial dragons, the former high and mighty creator had now become an abandoned stray dog. The obese Tenryubito could not escape the pursuit of the black-clothed man. The two sides were completely incomparable, and the Tenryubito was beheaded like a native dog. Hasn't Chris South Dustless, as fiancé Chris, been caught yet? A broad figure came out of the darkness, with a tiger's back and a bear's waist, and a gloomy face full of hostility. When the black-clothed man saw the old man, he looked respectful. This person was wearing a Taoist robe, holding a slender ancient sword in his hand, and wearing glasses. His cold eyes were sharper than a knife, and they swept across the black-clothed man one by one. It was the bald Gorosei holding the sword. "Sorry, sir, we haven't found her yet," the black-clothed man said in fear. Hearing this, the bald Gorosei's face turned cold, and the sword in his hand came out of the scabbard, and the sword fell, and the void splashed with a touch of sharpness visible to the naked eye. "Useless rice buckets, what's the use of having you?" Poochie. The black-clothed man's neck was suddenly empty, and he was cruelly dismembered by the bald Gorosei. His neck spurted blood like a fountain, cold and ruthless. "You damn human beings, dare to betray the Tenryubito? We are the descendants of the Creator." A Tenryubito who was lying in a pool of blood and had not yet died roared with red eyes. It was as crazy as a psychopath. "Descendants of the Creator?" Hearing this, the bald Gorosei sneered, and immediately his eyes burst into flames of ambition. "Your ancestors, the 20 kings, used the ancient weapon, Heavenly King, to destroy D country 800 years ago. Now we, the Gorosei, will do the same. Destroy the order of your Tenryubito, and we will replace your Tenryubito become the new creator." The bald Gorosei with a longing look. "Now that the Heavenly King's trace has been found, there is naturally no need for your Tenryubito exist." The bald Gorosei, the bald Gorosei, Chris Gorosei, the Gorosei, maybe you would have been slaughtered many years ago, the bald Gorosei. After saying that, the bald Gorosei sneered and immediately waved his sword to release a cold light. Seeing blood, the throat was sealed, and the life of the celestial dragon was instantly ended. Mariehua's surroundings were completely sealed, airtight, and even a fly couldn't fly out. The celestial dragons would be eradicated, and it was a sure thing. Dustless naturally didn't know about the huge changes that had happened to Mariehua. At this moment, he was still living a drunken life, and he was extremely comfortable every day. In a blink of an eye, 7 days have passed, and the sky has gradually darkened. In the palace of Dressrosa, through the port in the distance, Dustless's eyes flashed with a cruel smile as he stared at the pirates who continued to land in the distance. Now Dressrosa was empty. Most of these pirates who landed were coming for Pluton's design blueprint. "Master, do you still need to arrange tomorrow's gladiator tournament?" Khalifa asked confidently. The pirates who landed on the island came from all directions. Looking at them, they were all powerful people with unprecedented strength, including some big pirates with a bounty of 500 or 600 million berries. The number has reached dozens. The current Yonko for emperors is also among them. But even so, in the face of such a scene, Dustless's confidant was extremely calm. "It's not necessary, I will have a good sleep tonight, and tomorrow I will order Pluton to attack Dressrosa. Maybe the day after tomorrow, we will start traveling to other worlds." Dustless lowered his head and muttered to himself, looking at the thousands of pirates under Dressrosa. His eyes flashed with killing intent, and he would never show mercy to this group of pirates. In the other direction of Dressrosa, Marines also landed one after another, but most of them were high-level Marines. In this kind of world-destroying war, ordinary soldiers are just cannon fodder. At the same time, a very embarrassed voice quietly landed on the island. This person's clothes were ragged, and her white skin was looming. It was Dustless's fiancée Clea. "By the way, is Shirahoshi ready?" Suddenly turning his head, Dustless asked Princess Otoheim with some curiosity and hope. "No problem," Princess Otoheim said proudly. She was quite confident in Shirahoshi. After all, she was her daughter. Wuxia nodded slightly, and then squinted his eyes. The women also went back to their rooms. Due to the battle tomorrow, Wuchen did not force the women to sleep together. There was still time to deal with this group of clowns. Chapter 937. Late at night, the cold wind gradually turned cold. Only Wuchen was resting on the big soft bed. Due to the possibility of a big battle tomorrow, Wuchen also refused the few women's hospitality. It would not be too late to be ridiculous after the whole world was dragged into the nightmare of infinite Tsukuyomi. In the warm bed, Dustless arched his body. After a period of high tiredness, he also needed a proper rest. No one could stand living in a tense environment all day long. After some time, Dustless, who was sleeping soundly, frowned. A warm and cold body suddenly got into the bed and snuggled into Dustless's arms like a kitten. Like a little bird. She slowly took off Dustless's pajamas. Dustless felt that this body was unfamiliar. When he was about to open his eyes to explore, cold thin lips suddenly blocked his mouth and unscrupulously asked for more. Could it be Robin? It must be. After so many years, she finally became enlightened. Wu Chun relaxed his frowning brows and enjoyed the taste of the fusion of ice and fire. He closed his eyes contentedly. About a few minutes later, Wu Chen's calm heart was stirred up by the ecstasy. The perfect body in the bed was like an exquisite work of art. It was perfect to the extreme. Even with his eyes closed, Dustless could feel the delicacy of the skin. After a while, Dustless changed from defense to offense. He was not a monk. He could not restrain his desires nor suppress them. The next morning, the warm air passed through the window as usual. Dustless rubbed his eyes and opened them sleepily. Unexpectedly, a perfect face was looking at him with a smile. Her sacred green eyes were flawless, and her white arms were supporting her chin. Every strand of her beautiful golden hair was as dazzling as gold. Her fresh and elegant temperament made her seem like a fairy that had descended from the ninth heaven. What made one's blood boil was that this perfect character girl was actually not wearing any clothes to cover her body. Yo! Seeing Wu Chen staring at her without blinking, the young girl waved her hand and greeted him. Yo! Seeing this, Dustless was stunned. He also raised his arm to greet her. After being stunned for a few seconds, Dustless suddenly realized that something was wrong and twitched. Yo, my ass. Explain to me clearly. How did you get on my bed, Clea? Dustless's forehead was filled with countless crows. He almost vomited blood. This perfect girl in front of him was his cheating fiancée. Could it be that last night? That's right. It was me last night. You took away my most precious thing indiscriminately. Clea said with hidden bitterness and a trace of hesitation. Thinking of the madness last night, Wu Chen's body stiffened. He immediately stole a glance at Clea's perfect body that could reflect the sunlight. His face turned red as he threw her a piece of clothing. Hurry up and put it on. The latter stuck out her tongue at Dustless, then put on the clothes obediently. She looked at the blushing Dustless with a smile and said seriously, I don't mind. Why should a man like you mind? You make it sound so easy. No one would be able to feel at ease about doing this kind of thing with a strange girl. Dustless rolled his eyes and said, You heartless guy. I am your fiancé. Clea glared at Dustless with dissatisfaction and said resentfully, And we are a match made in heaven. Getting me is the same as conquering the whole world. I am not a pretty boy who relies on his face to make a living. Dustless groaned and said with dissatisfaction. He couldn't help but ask curiously, Getting you is the same as getting the whole world? What do you mean? You have to promise to take responsibility for me first. Clea's sweet laughter was intoxicating, like the sound of nature. Suddenly, Dustless lowered his head and became silent. He wanted to refuse directly, but when he looked up he met Clea's watery eyes. She looked a little timid and worried, and her eyes were unusually frightened. He couldn't bear to see her like this. Dustless didn't think that he was a good person, but since he had done it with a woman, taking care of her for life was a must. This was the basic principle of being a man. Although this was an accident, the main reason was Dustless. No problem, you say it. Gritting his teeth, Dustless finally made a decision. Even though Clea was also from Tianlong, Wuchen, who was good at observing people, could still see that her nature was not good. She did not have the overbearing arrogance of the people from Tianlong. Moi, after saying that, the girl kissed Dustless's face and then leaned lazily in Dustless's arms. She recalled the past and explained softly, I am one of the ancient weapons that the world has been chasing. Heavenly King. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Before Dustless could be surprised, a cold emerald light suddenly appeared in front of him, trying to tear Dustless apart. It was so sharp that everything in its path exploded. An emerald slash? Is it that guy Eagle Eye? Dustless frowned and guessed. He then said to Clea, I will listen to your story in the future, but this world will end soon. I will temporarily put you back into the world of Shinwei. No problem. Hearing this, Clea nodded like a little chick. She trusted Dustless a lot. The people of Tianlong have been destroyed by the 5 elder stars. You are the only one I can rely on in this world. Don't worry. I will not let you down. Dustless gave her a comforting look. He was also quite open-minded. To be honest, he was very curious about this woman at first and secretly guessed her origin. He didn't expect her to be the legendary Heavenly King. Maybe it's because she ate some kind of devil fruit. Dustless guessed in his heart. At the same time, he released Shinwei to devour Clea. There were countless cases of humans eating some kind of devil fruit that caused their body to mutate. The former CP9 officer Spandam had a similar weapon in his hand. Boom. Boom. While he was thinking, the huge slash was getting closer and closer, and it was about to swallow Dustless. The sharpness of the slash was enough to easily tear a mountain. You're overestimating yourself. Sitting back on the sofa indifferently, Dustless's eyes rippled. 2 figures hidden in the darkness shot out, blocking in front of Dustless like a shield. Ka ka ka. The 2 of them exerted force at the same time, and a huge fist blasted forward. The powerful fist roared out and directly shattered the oncoming slash. It was 100 Beast Kaido and Doflamingo from the 6 Paths of Pain. After a while, the man with the eagle pupil, Hawkeye my hawk, appeared. Even you betrayed me, Hawkeye. Dustless's tone revealed a touch of emotion and the vicissitudes of life, unusually calm. Hearing this, Hawkeye shook his head and immediately said indifferently, It's not that I betrayed you, but you betrayed me. You violated the original agreement, and now you want to destroy the world. I'm sorry, our previous cooperation ends here, and now we are in a hostile state. Dustless's mouth raised slightly, and he smiled. It seems that you know a lot, but it doesn't matter. Boom. 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 Violent tremors suddenly spread throughout Dressrosa, like a large earthquake of tens of magnitude, and huge cracks appeared on the ground of Dressrosa. It seems to have started. Looking at the trembling sea in the distance, Dustless whispered. Chapter 938. The ground trembled violently, and the earth was constantly being torn apart. The whole of Dressrosa was like a lone boat in a storm, churning at a high frequency. However, the strange thing was that this scene didn't last long. Seeing this, Hawkeye let out a relieved smile, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He said in a relaxed tone, Caesar, that guy he won't use Hades' cannon to attack Dressrosa. Things in the world are often unexpected. I didn't expect that the cowardly brat would embark on the same path as you. Wuxia took a sip of tea indifferently. His expression was even a little lazy and sloppy. Hawkeye frowned, and his face flashed with a haze. He felt that he was underestimated and even ignored. It's exactly because you said that Caesar is afraid of death, so he will resist you. Hawkeye said bluntly, and immediately raised his voice and said indifferently, Not only that, he will use Pluto to deal with you. All of this was forced by you. Originally, Hawkeye and Caesar didn't intend to betray, but Dustless betrayed them. There is no other way. Looking up at the exquisite ceiling, Wuxia sighed and said, Since ancient times, if you want to succeed, you will always be accompanied by sacrifice. Sacrificing small things to help you achieve greater things. There is nothing inappropriate about this. After all, people are selfish. Boom boom boom. Inside the closed palace, the surroundings suddenly collapsed strangely, and the dazzling sunlight shone in. Dustless instinctively raised his arm to block the sunlight. Crack crack crack. At the same time, the ground under Dustless's feet exploded, and there was a crack the size of an arm, and the hot magma overflowed from it. You have a lot of enemies. Hawkeye's eyes narrowed slightly, and he immediately understood who the initiator was. Who made me stand on the opposite side of the world? Dustless said calmly, and he turned a deaf ear to the magma that was slowly swallowing him. And he didn't look at it from beginning to end. Louis South, for the sake of former colleagues, as long as you give me the blueprint of Pluto, I will spare your life. Akainu strangely drilled out of the magma and condensed his head. Not only that, but a group of Marines also appeared and surrounded Dustless. Of course, there were also groups of pirates. Looking down at Akainu, or Akainu's head made of lava, Dustless not only didn't appreciate it, but also made Akainu angry. Sakazuki, your nickname is Akainu, but you don't have to learn to be a dog. Looking at the magma overflowing from the cracks in the ground, Dustless joked. You don't want to be a good person, you have to learn to drill a dog hole. The Marine Fleet Admiral's taste is really heavy. You're courting death. The furious Akainu immediately responded, waving his lava fist as the most ferocious attack. Great fire breath. The huge lava fist came straight at him. Its surface area was even larger than Dustless's entire body. The scorching temperature burned the sky red, and the ground in its path was scorched black. Well, Dustless was indifferent, but there was a dense whistling sound behind him. Looking back leisurely, Dustless's pupils were instantly filled with golden flashes. Yasakani no Magatama. Tens of thousands of light bullets poured down in torrents. The sharpness of the bullets tore through the void in a mighty manner. There was only one target, that is Dustless. Undoubtedly in this world, except for Dustless, the only person who can use Yasakani no Magatama is Kizaru. It seems that the elites of the Marine are here. Ripples appeared in the void from his palm, and a slender blade appeared out of nowhere. A cold light flashed across the horizon, and the first-generation ghost blade was unsheathed. The blade was wrapped in a demonic red light, and it was as demonic as fresh blood. It emitted rumbling sounds, and it was as if it couldn't wait to drink blood. Facing the oncoming flame fist, the first-generation ghost blade swept out. Pucci. The bloody light easily passed through the lava fist, and suddenly split into two. It was as easy as cutting vegetables. Then he looked back and looked at the large flash of light, and his eyes solidified. This kind of thing, how can it hurt me? Gently lifting his arm, the first-generation ghost blade was filled with a cold light that shattered the sky. After a while, the sky rippled, and a huge red light was thrown out from the tip of the first-generation ghost blade. The speed was so fast that only an afterimage could be seen. However, its power was unparalleled, and even the horizon was faintly distorted. The bloody slash beat the prelude of destruction, and the situation was completely one-sided. The incoming golden flashes were intercepted and immediately annihilated, as if they had encountered a natural enemy. The sky that was dyed in gold cleared up once again. Of course, I know that I can't hurt you, so I used that kind of powerful attack to attract your attention. His pupils flashed with golden light, and a tall figure blocked the sky. His face was full of stubble, wearing reading glasses, and of course his small feet were swallowed by the golden light. Although we used to be colleagues, I still want to ask, have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? Kizaru asked lazily. Well, when the voice fell, a dazzling flash condensed, and Kizaru was immediately surprised to find that Dustless's small feet were also ignited with extremely dense photons. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? This sentence should be said by me, Borsellino. Chapter 939. Kizaru was shocked when he saw this. His old face finally couldn't keep calm. His eyes were obviously full of horror. The glittering feet made Kizaru feel a fatal threat, and his hair stood up uncontrollably. The light condensed on his feet reached the limit, and his skin felt incomparable tingling pain. Kizaru chose to make the first move. His body was extremely tall, and he kicked toward Dustless's eyes. Dustless was as calm as stagnant water, and his whole body was terrifyingly calm, like a beast lurking in the dark, making people shudder. Seeing that Dustless didn't dodge or take defensive action, even with Kizaru's temperament, his heart flashed with anger, and the strength of his feet increased by 3 points. Boom! The violent impact spread, setting off a rapid impact explosion. A blazing flame mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the burning black smoke was up to 100 meters long. The sky was filled with water in an instant, and the danger of suffocation filled the air. This feeling, Kizaru was stunned, and he noticed a strange touch from his calf. He narrowed his eyes, and a bad feeling flashed in his heart. At this moment, in the black smoke, a ray of golden light swept through without warning, followed by unlimited expansion, and all the black smoke was dispelled. Very powerful attack, Borsellino. The smoke receded, revealing the intact Dustless. His body was clean and even the dust didn't cover it. On the other hand, Kizaru was still at a disadvantage. Looking closely, Kizaru's calf was caught by the left arm covered with haki. This is courtesy. Lifting his calf, Dustless jumped up and greeted Kizaru's old face. Lightspeed kick. Boom boom boom. Kizaru's body was rampaging, and he was kicked hundreds of meters away by Dustless. He was lying on the ground, and his whole body was burned. Whiz whiz whiz. At the same time, several figures fell from the sky, and the ground was covered with smoke, and the outline was blurred. Revolutionary Army's boss, Durag, Blackbeard Marshal D. Titch, Red Hairshanks, and staring at the large group of pirates behind them, Dustless nodded slightly. There were many pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries, and this lineup may destroy the world government. Marine Fleet Admiral Fujitora and Green Ox, and Garp and Sengoku and Admiral. Such a luxurious lineup. The spearhead was only aimed at one person, Dustless. Hand over the Hades design blueprint, and I'll let bygones be bygones. Lewis South, Chief Commander Kong said in a loud voice. His tone was so convincing that one could not help but obey. This battle formation is truly terrifying. Wu Chen's eyes spread out and saw countless legendary figures. He pretended to be afraid and smiled. Then, he changed the topic and stared at the stern-looking General Kong. A cunning smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There is only one Pluton's design, and there are so many of you. Who should I give it to? Taking out Pluton's design, Dustless shook it, and the eyes of the pirates and marines also followed. Even the red-haired Shanks's expression was vaguely greedy and covetous. Obtaining the Pluto design blueprint and obtaining the world was just a matter of time. Who could be relieved of the throne of the world king? What a cunning guy! Garp and Sengoku looked at each other, and the pirates who besieged Dustless changed their eyes. They looked at each other, and from temporary allies, they turned into bad intentions. Of course, this kind of thing is mine. Blackbeard laughed, and his whole person turned into a gust of wind. An invisible hand condensed in the sky, full of high-density gravity, covered Dustless's Pluton's design. Idiot! Seeing this, Wu Chen smiled secretly. Not only did he not stop it, but he flicked out the King of Hell's design blueprint, deliberately letting the design blueprint fall into Blackbeard's hands safely. Ha ha ha! Grabbing Pluton's design, as if grabbing the whole world, Blackbeard was about to laugh, but suddenly he was shocked to find that everyone's eyes looking at him had changed. In an instant, he became the target of public criticism. Shoo shoo shoo, how Shikahaki raged, the earth trembled, the sea churned, the clouds in the sky disappeared, and the original clear sky was torn into a black hole for several kilometers. Whiz whiz whiz, the sword energy was raging, and the awe-inspiring fighting power was infinite. The first person to attack Blackbeard was Red Hairshanks. Revolutionary Army leader Dorag was no exception. Or perhaps the big and small pirates swarmed up and all rushed to Blackbeard. You don't move. Be careful that Pluton's design will be taken by others. The marine side has more rules, although they are jealous, they rationally choose to stand by. Dustless quietly looked at Commander Kong, Sengoku, Garp and others, and suddenly noticed that a few people were missing. Why aren't the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, on such an important occasion? Dustless's heart was full of reverie, and the inexplicable disappearance of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, was unreasonable. Our marine's task is not only Pluton's design. Akainu saw that Sengoku and Garp, as well as Commander Kong, were there, and he suddenly became confident. In addition, there is your head. Chapter 940. Dustless's pupils were dead and somewhat horrifying, able to swallow the human mind. This group of people. The Navy is really shameless. Wuxia raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. His eyes fell on the indignant Sengoku and Garp. Dustless's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Since they can cut off their past relationship, Dustless can do the same. Gravity Sword Tiger. An incomparably domineering slash swept over. The power of the slash was so great that it caused people to feel despair. The slash was imbued with the power of gravity, and wherever it went, it left behind a mess. The ground was sliced apart as easily as tofu, leaving behind a fissure that was tens of meters deep. It swept toward Dustless with the momentum of crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. You're just a loser, but you're so arrogant. Dustless naturally wouldn't choose to sit still. Chakra in his body was surging, and a very dangerous wave floated out of Dustless's body. Don't even think about it. Sengoku's body shone brighter than the sun, and his body expanded rapidly, turning into a sacred and solemn Buddha. His palm condensed an impact and aimed at Dustless. Garp and Akainu looked at each other, each showing their magical power. Haki and their respective abilities bloomed with the power to destroy the world. The colorful light was shining, revealing the power to destroy the world. Without exception, the target was Dustless. Boom boom boom. Dustless's location was subjected to countless powerful attacks, and was instantly flattened. All the buildings in Dressrosa also turned into nothingness. Even the pirates fighting nearby were involved in it, and their bodies were not left behind. Ka ka ka. A huge roar sounded, and a crack that stretched for countless meters spread rapidly, swallowing the entire Dressrosa, and the island that had been passed down for thousands of years, or even longer, collapsed in the blink of an eye, divided into two. Such a powerful attack, even if he is immortal. Sengoku's voice hasn't fallen yet, and the void condensed a dazzling light, and Dustless's body recovered. Not only that, but it was accompanied by a flash of light that penetrated all things. Yasakani no Magatama. Extremely dense rays of light blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Cold light flickered, far sharper than blade light. Furthermore, they were abnormally hot. There was simply no way to evade the torrential rain of light. Almost half of Dressrosa had been torn to shreds. Leave it to me. Under the perception of observation Haki, the exaggerated attack was detected by Fujitora. The tachi in his hand gently tapped on the ground, and a miraculous scene was instantly staged. The ruined buildings on the ground completely ignored the existence of gravity. They slowly rose into the air and finally floated in midair. Boom boom boom. A lot of smoke and dust splashed in the sky, and the flashes crushed all the ruins. The Marines on the ground were safe and sound, and were saved by Fujitora's ability. Since I'm going to wreak havoc, I might as well do it thoroughly. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Dustless's eyes became even colder. His body emitted a golden light, and the incomplete Kinsusinu enveloped his body. He stared at the island beneath his feet with contempt in his eyes. Tengai quaking star. In an instant, the clear sky turned incomparably dark. This strange scene stunned everyone, and they all looked up at the sky at the same time. In the depths of the clouds, a huge meteorite about 15 kilometers in diameter slowly fell. Its range covered the entire Dressrosa. Everyone's face was dispirited, and the dead silence was replaced by shock. Jeppo moonwalk. In the crowd, an untimely laugh resounded through the sky, and then a broad figure rose from the ground. Compared with the meteorite, this person's thin body was obviously not worth mentioning. But no one dared to look down on him. And Dustless was no exception. This old thing. Where is this Jeppo moonwalk? It can be counted as flying. Dustless's tone was somewhat stunned. The person who rose into the sky and swept toward the super-large meteorite was the marine hero Garp. It was completely like a rocket piercing the sky, not like Jeppo moonwalk, at all. Boom boom boom. Haushiko Haki rolled and raged. And for the first time in decades, Garp showed his full strength. Under this monstrous momentum, the falling meteorites in the void strangely stopped for a few seconds, as if they were held by a big hand without substance. Looking around, the earth was dark, as if the whole world was covered with a transparent gauze curtain, dim and dark. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the dark iron fist blasted toward the meteorite that was enough to destroy the world. Ka ka ka. The slowly falling meteorite made a crisp sound, and immediately shattered. With Garp's fist as the center, the thick and ferocious cracks spread endlessly, as thick as dozens of people stacked together. In the blink of an eye, the entire meteorite was eroded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of fragments also peeled off, and it was as big as a marine battleship. When it hit the fragmented island, it would definitely collapse, but fortunately, it was moved into the sea by Fujitora's ability. It's not broken yet? Garp's rough old face flashed a touch of surprise. Seeing the meteorite struggling at death's door, Garp's other fist whistled up. Boom boom boom. The meteorite that destroyed Dressrosa disappeared, and turned into debris all over the sky. The brilliant sun poured down, and the shadow disappeared. The Marines and pirates also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now they had half a foot in hell. You think that's it? It's not that simple. With a sneer on the corner of his mouth, the sky that was not clear for long was dark again, shrouded in despair. Looking up, a meteorite that was no worse than the previous one was coming again. Chapter 941. The island below was torn apart and turned into two halves. All the creatures looked at the exaggerated meteorite with a stunned expression. The atmosphere was dead silent. All the creatures felt that there was a big guillotine on their necks. They thought that they would be able to see the blue sky after clearing the clouds and mist, but they didn't expect to be greeted by another meteorite. Oh, really, you young people? Hey, now you want us old people to do it, you're getting worse and worse. These words attracted everyone's attention, and they looked for the source of the sound. Everyone's eyes were focused on an old man with a mohawk. His body was wrapped with explosive muscles, and he was even stronger than Garp. The vicissitudes of his face made him appear extremely old. However, his bright and spirited eyes would occasionally reveal an oppressively sharp luster. The world government's commander-in-chief, Sky. This old man's strength has always been a mystery. Now that I can witness his strength with my own eyes, it's pretty good. In the void, Dustless smiled indifferently, looking at the meteorite falling from the sky. His eyes flashed with disapproval. The effect of dealing with the pirates with a bounty of 500 to 600 million was perfect. Dealing with Garp and Sky, these superdimensional monsters, only served to show off their strength. Whoosh! The afterimage jumped up and rushed straight toward the meteorite falling from the sky. Even because the speed was too exaggerated, Dustless could feel the storm blowing on his face. Without exception, like Garp, his fist was swallowed by the darkness, and he pointed straight to the sky without fear. Boom boom boom. An unprecedented heavy blow blasted on the meteorite, and the powerful force destroyed the sky and the earth. In an instant, the meteorite that covered the sky was smashed, and sky disappeared from everyone's sight. Bang bang bang. In the space where there was no one, it was like someone was stepping on the air, and there was a rhythmic explosion. But if you look closely, there were no birds or beasts. Full of flaws. The afterimage that disappeared in the blink of an eye couldn't be captured by others, but Dustless's eyes could see everything at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash condensed on the tip of his foot cut through the void and blasted straight ahead. The target was the flickering afterimage. Petty tricks. As he stared at the incoming beam of light, Chief Commander Kong's figure was revealed amidst the afterimages that were moving at an extremely fast speed. He floated in the air for a short period of time in a bizarre manner. His gaze was calm and composed, and there was contempt in his eyes. A pair of arms that were several times thicker than human thighs were swallowed by armament hockey, and the power of the fist was enough to smash an island. Bang! The iron fist punched out, and the high-density flash suddenly burst and scattered in all directions. It was exceptionally easy and simple. General Kong cupped his fists and looked straight at Dustless. His tone was full of confidence. Surrender. You won't be able to escape today. However, just as he finished speaking, Dustless's ghostly voice resounded in Commander Kong's ears. It's not good to be so arrogant at your age. The sky is not suitable for a marine like you. The sea is more suitable for you. After that, Dustless's right fist was also swallowed by the deep darkness, covered with the sharpness of armament haki, shining brightly, and even the sunlight could be reflected. Then, under everyone's astonishment, it blasted towards Kong's head. Pucci. General Kong, who was hit hard, vomited blood, and his mind was spinning. His mind was blank like a paste, and he instantly lost the ability to fight again. Putong. There was a loud explosion on the calm sea, and immediately a huge ripple surged, and then a water column of more than 10 meters high was set off. General Kong, who had just been confronting in the sky, evaporated. Needless to say, it was air who was blasted into the sea. Your next, Garp. Looking back indifferently, Dustless stared at Garp, who was using Jeppo Moonwalk to occupy the void. He sneered and countless photons appeared all over his body, and he swooped down with great momentum. The speed of light was too fast for the naked eye to catch. Found him. After a few seconds of silence, Garp's eyes shone with a cold luster. Under the perception of observation haki, he understood the existence of Dustless, and immediately turned around and punched without hesitation. Boom. The ripples visible to the naked eye spread rapidly, and this unparalleled impact wave covered a range of more than 10 kilometers. If it was on land, it may be a one-time collision that would wipe out Dressrosa. When did this guy's armament haki reach this level? In midair, Dustless and Garp's fists collided. The feeling of soreness and swelling pain from his fist made Garp a little dazed, and it was the first time in decades that he felt this way. Bang bang bang. The dull impacts sounded continuously, and the ripples visible to the naked eye repelled out one after another. The sky became a forbidden area, and there were only two figures fiercely confronting each other. Good opportunity. Perceiving that Dustless showed a rare flaw, Garp's fist hit Dustless's right shoulder very craftily, and his power increased dozens of times in an instant. The fish took the bait. Seeing this, Dustless was not surprised, and his eyes went wild. Kimui. Garp's fists also inevitably hit the air when his body turned from nothingness to reality. He, who was completely unaware, instantly became a fat and beautiful lamb in Wu Chen's eyes. While Garp was distracted, a ray of golden light fell from the sky, and the localized Kinsusanu's fist hit him. Chapter 942. Without warning, a huge fist fell from the sky. When Garp was hit with all his strength, he woke up from his dream and used armament haki to defend himself. He suffered a heavy blow and his head was bleeding. Puff. Without exception, Garp also followed the footsteps of Air Commander, and was blasted into the deep sea by Dustless. Go and save both of them. Akainu's face was blue and he yelled at the stunned Marines behind him. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. A group of idiots, they don't even have a little bit of eyesight. Next, a light voice filled their ears, and a figure flashed out of the ground. After I end you, this world will set foot on heaven. The line of sight revolved around the remaining high-level Marines, and the pirate side was ignored by Dustless. That group of people only cared about competing for Pluton's design blueprint. Blackbeard was already riddled with holes, and whether he could survive was a problem. Compared with the pirates, the Marines are the real enemy. Let's go together. Retired Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Admiral Tunghu, including the new Admiral Green Bull, and Akainu. Everyone looked at each other and rushed to Dustless. Meteor Volcano. With a wave of his hand, it was his strongest move. A huge flaming fist rushed towards Dustless. Everything in front of the magma was burned to ashes. Dustless didn't change his face when he saw this, and his body erupted with a majestic repulsive force. Shinra Tensei. The magma near his feet was easily bounced out. The eyeball suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. Wu Chen instinctively raised his arm to block his eyes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, an incomparably tyrannical attack came from behind. Pucci. The invisible force fluctuation couldn't be defended. It was like a shock wave without substance. It instantly hit Dustless, and his bones also made a crackling sound of destruction. Dustless was seriously injured. It worked. Sengoku said hopefully, his eager eyes were piercing. Sengoku, is your ability this kind of irresistible impact? It really worked. Glancing back at Sengoku, Dustless was calm, As if nothing had happened, he didn't even cry out in pain, which made Sengoku deeply shocked. Mysterious power gushed out of his body, the broken bones, and the injured viscera were repaired at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths of time, he was completely healed. This exaggerated defensive ability caused everyone's eyes to widen, and a trace of despair inevitably rose in their hearts. What kind of monster is this bastard? Is it possible that he ate hundreds of devil fruits like that pervert Blackbeard? Thinking of Dustless's thousands of abilities, Akainu felt dizzy. As long as we shatter his entire body, he will never be able to recover. A deep shout raised everyone's hope. They looked up and saw that it was Commander Kong and Garp who had crawled out from the deep sea. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state with blood all over their bodies. That's right, let's attack him together. Akainu also shouted loudly, a one-on-one fight may not work, but if 5 or 6 people come together, their combat power will inevitably increase. It's been a long time, haven't you given up yet? Dustless shook his head and sighed, and immediately looked at the stubborn and unwilling eyes of the Marine's senior officers, and his whole body was covered with a higher density of chakra. Well, I'll let you see my true face. A nearly 200-meter golden giant wearing a Tengu armor appeared in the sky, Kinsusanoo complete form. The giant's head stood on the ground, and the whole world was covered by his light. His whole body was filled with the smell of ancient decay. His ancient armor had been through hundreds of battles, leaving countless traces, and the 2 long swords at his waist could cut the world. When Kinsusanoo complete form flashed, the whole world was silent, and the pirates and marines who were fighting with Dressrosa stopped breathing for a moment. Even the coveted Pluto King's design was forgotten. Clang! Under the control of Dustless's mind, Kinsusanoo complete form was unsheathed, and there was a crisp roar. When the Tachi of Light was completely unsheathed, the remaining creatures of Dressrosa saw the Grim Reaper in a trance. Everyone, give up fighting for the time being, attack Royce South first, he wants to destroy us all. Durag shouted, and his tone carried the power of bewitchment. The pirates and even the marines were all influenced, and all the spearheads were aimed at Dustless. Boom. Ka ka ka. With a height of nearly 200 meters, it was not easy to move, and it immediately became the perfect target. It was surrounded and beaten violently. The exaggerated height was too big a threat, and it became the target of everyone's venting. Although Kinsusanoo complete form was powerful, it was not invincible. In the face of the relentless bombardment of thousands of strong people, its armor and limbs were constantly smashed. However, the incomplete cracks would be repaired by chakra gushing out of Dustless's body. When there are many ants, they can also shake the world. Dustless in Kinsusanoo complete form sighed, and immediately, the majestic chakra rushed out, and the 200-meter tall body strangely became taller. Not only that, a large number of irregular golden charms filled Kinsusanoo's body, and whether it was defense or attack, it was a world of difference from before, and it received a dimensional upgrade. Senjutsu Kinsusanoo complete form. Sorry, let's part here. I'm tired of playing, let's part here. Dustless said to himself, and then his pupils twisted sharply. Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. Chapter 943. In the invisible world, dozens of figures flew out one after another. Looking closely, it was Dustless's shadows, and the number was beyond previous knowledge. There were 12 of them. It was far more than Madara's 4 shadows. This was reasonable. After all, Dustless's eye power was not comparable to Madara's. The shadows that were usually only used for hand-to-hand combat, at this time like Dustless's left eye, turned into deep 9-tomo Rinnegan, pulsing with ancient and mysterious brilliance. Especially the 9-tomo hanging, the folds were shining, as gorgeous as gems. Then this group of puppet shadows strangely opened their mouths at the same time, and it was the same word and move. The shadow's left eyes turned sharply, and the substantialized chakra rose more than 200 meters. Kinsusanoo. The 12 shadows launched Kinsusanoo at the same time, and the fierce Tengu armor condensed in the void. What was more terrifying was that this majestic and infinite chakra was neither the mature Kinsusanoo, nor the complete Kinsusanoo. It was the same Senjutsu Kinsusinu as Dustless. The entire sea around Dressrosa, plus Dustless's Kinsusinu, gathered a total of 13 Senjutsu Kinsusinu. The entire Dressrosa was surrounded, and not even a drop of water could leak out. This group of idiots. Forget it, I'm too lazy to explain. Sometimes ignorance is a kind of precious happiness. And it's not good to let them understand the cruel reality. Really, I must have been a bodhisattva in my previous life. Dustless admired himself, and he was speechless for his kindness and benevolence. Clang, clang, clang. 13 more than 10 meters long luminous tachi appeared in the void, aiming and locking in the direction of Dressrosa. However, the sad pirates and marines were still bombarding Dustless's Kinsusinu, and the remaining 12 Kinsusinu were not seen. Farewell everyone. Dustless's face was indifferent, and under the control of his mind, the 13 tachi fell at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. The Armageddon blade fell, and the two halves of Dressrosa were instantly annihilated, turning into particles that sank into the sea. The entire sea was scarlet red, and countless corpses floated on it. At first glance, almost all of them were missing an arm or a leg. Just like Dressrosa, they had been cruelly dismembered. Some devil fruit users who were lucky enough to survive had only death waiting for them. Cough, cough, cough. The figure covered in blood climbed onto a small floating object. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and his body was powerless. Looking closely, this person's stomach had been cut open, and there was a frightening wound on his chest. It was as if his entire body had been split apart. Even so, he survived. Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, a kainu, he actually survived. Dustless, who was in the sky, removed Kinsusinu, stood on the surface of the water, looked at the broken corpses around, smiled slightly, then glanced at a kainu and left. His internal organs had been crushed, and even God couldn't save him. Akagami's body, Dorag's body, Kizara's body, Fujitora's body, Hawkeye's body. Dustless counted the loot and nodded with satisfaction. To some extent, it was a miracle that they could preserve their bodies after being attacked by 13 Senjutsu. Kinsusinu perfect body. Live on while at death's door. Glancing at Akainu with pity, Dustless began to look for Hancock and others, as well as the whereabouts of Shirahoshi. Later he would use infinite Tsukuyomi and tree world descent to end this world. This kind of indiscriminate technique, Hancock and Robin will also be affected, and must be stored in the system in advance. Rumble. The den mushi in his arm suddenly rang. Akainu was stunned, and immediately took out the black den mushi with a lonely face. Sakazuki. What's the situation? Has Lewis South been killed? With so many high-end forces he will die. The Gorosei on the other side of the den mushi laughed. Sorry. The marine was defeated. All of them were wiped out. Akainu said with guilt, and immediately looked at the bodies floating on the sea. Not only us but the pirates, the Yonko 4 emperors, and the high-level revolutionary army were all wiped out by Lewis South. He defeated the whole world alone. So only Lewis South is alive? The Gorosei on the other side of the den mushi said in a low voice. Akainu also heard the subtle change in the Gorosei's voice, and immediately said seriously, Yes. Akainu. Your marine has served the world government for many years, and now the government will help you get revenge on Lewis South. After that, the Gorosei closed the den mushi. Akainu was left with a blank face. Half an hour later, Dustless finally found the traces of the women and Shirahoshi, and put them into the system, and was about to release infinite Tsukuyomi. The sea under his feet suddenly trembled. The sky also turned fiery red. Dustless's pupils shrank, and looking as far as he could, the distant sky was burning red, and at the same time, the sea was rolling up monstrous waves. An unprecedented shock spread, not a small town, not an island, but the whole world. The whole world was rolling like it was about to explode. Chapter 944. Bastard, what's going on? Noticing the abnormality of the whole world, Dustless's face changed rapidly. He clenched his fists and tried to take in the changes of the whole world with his majestic perception. It's not an illusion, nor is it a genjutsu. The whole new world is collapsing. The dormant volcanoes erupted again. The mountains on the seabed began to dislocate. There was a violent vibration. Hot magma erupted in the deep sea, and the weather of the new world became lightning and thunder. Islands are constantly sinking and being destroyed, whether it's occupied by pirates or marines, or some unknown deserted islands. They are all sinking rapidly. Disappeared from the map plate. Could it be? His pupils shrank. Dustless suddenly realized that after something big touched the taboo, this kind of shocking scene will happen. His body immediately rushed out like a storm. Staring at the dying figure on the floating object in front of him, he stopped in his tracks. Is this also in your plan? Sakazuki. His feet stopped in the void. Looking down at Akainu in front of him, Dustless frowned and asked, This? Trying to open his eyes, Akainu said with all his strength, although I am unscrupulous in order to achieve my goals, but not to this extent, this is done by the Gorosei. It has nothing to do with the marine. After that, Akainu closed his eyes forever, and his breathing and heartbeat stopped forever. This guy. Forget it. Looking at Akainu, who died and still defended the marine, Dustless had nothing to say. Although Akainu's thoughts are extreme, he can sacrifice anyone for the so-called justice, but it is undeniable that he sincerely protects the marine, and he has no selfish desires. At least this is the most respectable point. Damn the Gorosei, their ambition is enough to swallow the world. In order to kill me, they are willing to bury the whole world with me. If he didn't guess wrong, the Gorosei did what he wanted to do, but didn't do it. They used the power rock to detonate 3 places that maintain the balance of the new world, causing the new world to collapse. Well played. Not only did you successfully erase all the pirates in the world, even the marines and I were also erased. The 5 of them will be able to sit back and relax and become the new creators. Most of the world's powerhouses were gathered in the new world. If this group of people was destroyed, the world ruled by the 5 elder stars would fall into an unprecedented peace. They would also be called godlike existences by the world. Boom boom boom. The series of explosions continued, affecting a range of hundreds of kilometers. The entire new world was devastated and involved in this explosive feast. Countless islands disappeared, and the terrified people were brutally wiped out. Even when they died, they didn't know what had happened. Humph. I'll come out and deal with the 5 of you later. Observing the new world that was engulfed by explosions and various geological disasters, such as volcanic eruptions, super earthquakes, and great tsunamis, Dustless, who was floating in the void, was swallowed up by the vortex, and soon disappeared without a sound. Inside the Shenwei world. Although Wu Chen's divine power originated from Obito, the difference between the divine power and the different space was like heaven and earth. Although it couldn't be said to be a paradise in the mortal world, it was still lofty and comfortable. Plop. The sound of falling into the water attracted Dustless's attention, and he followed the source. After a while, Dustless was embarrassed. In the clear lake, the girl was naked. Her snow-white skin and perfect curves were exposed to Dustless's sight. Her long golden hair was dancing, and she was very happy. Looking up, there were 2 strands of cherry red on her breasts. It was perfect and flawless, and the scenery was beautiful. Dustless suppressed his horse breath. For a moment his mouth was dry and his tongue was dry. An inexplicable flame burned in his heart, and it quickly squeezed Dustless's reason. Cough cough. Remembering that he still had important matters to ask, Dustless had to suppress his evil thoughts. He deliberately raised his voice and coughed twice to attract Clia's attention and make his presence known. Noticing Dustless's appearance, Clia was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be dissatisfied and muttered, I thought you forgot about me. Stop talking nonsense and put on your clothes. Dustless waved his hand righteously. His modest and gentlemanly appearance made Clia both angry and amused. When he had taken away her most precious thing, he had given her the impression that he was a hungry wolf that had not eaten for many years. He was incomparably ferocious, and wanted to completely suck her dry. Clia pursed her lips and smiled. She came ashore in a natural and unrestrained manner, and elegantly dressed herself. This girl is indeed different from the other people of Tianlong. Peeking at Clia's every move, Dustless was quite surprised. After more than 10 years of meticulous service, Dustless's heart had already decayed. Putting on clothes was something that he was not familiar with. Dustless had to do it herself. This was also the reason why Dustless lost himself in the decadent life of the people of Tianlong. Clia put on her clothes so easily and simply. It indirectly showed that she used to do it herself. Practice makes perfect, and she did not need the help of others. You should tell me about your origin, right? Dustless blinked and asked curiously. Clia nodded slightly and immediately sank into her memories. The young girl's tone was full of vicissitudes, giving people the illusion that she was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. To be honest, 800 years ago, I accidentally ate a devil's fruit. Its ability allowed me to evolve all kinds of extreme firearms. Because of its terrifying power, the people gave me a name, Heavenly King. Clia said proudly, with a hint of pride in her tone. Then what is your relationship with the 20 kings who built the world government? Dustless was puzzled. Since her ability was so invincible and she was given the title of God by the world, there was no need to cooperate with the ancestors of the people of Tianlong, which was the 20 kings. There is no invincible devil's fruit. There is always a short time. While I gained great power, there was also a fatal loophole. Some extremely powerful weapons had a limit to the number of times they could be used, and excessive use would cause them to fall into a coma. Fortunately, I have the ability to not die, so the long river of life is just a moment for me. Clia smiled bitterly. If she could really exert her full strength, she would not have been driven out of Mariehua by the 5 elder stars, and she even had to submit to Dustless. That's enough. I'm not interested in knowing about your past. With a wave of his hand, Dustless interrupted directly. He just wanted to know Clia's origin. Nothing else was important. No one wanted to have an unknown person around them. That's it? Clia's face was full of suspicion, and she immediately emphasized. I'm an old monster who has lived for more than 800 years. So what if it's more than 800 years? Dustless asked in amusement. Kagaya is an old monster who has lived for at least 1,000 years. You can just wait here. His body blurred again, passing through thousands of space-time and returning to the real world. Everything had changed, and the whole world was bleak, like the hell of the human world. I wanted to let you go to the Genjutsu world to dream of the Creator. But now it seems that I should forget about it. His right eye turned into the Tensigen. Dustless formed a seal with both hands, and without hesitation he entered the Tensigen chakra mode, and several green spheres floated behind him. Dustless looked at Mariehua countless miles away, and pointed his sword at the 5 elder stars. Chapter 945. No matter when and where, under which starry sky, there is no shortage of existences in this world who like to seek death. The emerald green light lingered around Dustless's body, and his temperament also underwent a shocking change. Under the Tensigen chakra mode, Dustless became more and more indifferent, and the dead still pupils did not have human emotions. Like a machine, standing at an unprecedented height, full of contempt for all living things in the world, looking at the grasses and trees of the world with a condescending gaze. The sky is so small, and all living things are so unbearable that they can only tremble. Carefully experiencing the chakra fluctuations flowing in his body, Dustless has never felt that life is so worthless. The power to destroy the world with a wave of his hand, and create the world with a raise of his hand is indeed intoxicating. If you don't seek death, you won't die? Since you seek death, then you will die. Dustless's cold eyes looked into the distance, and his overbearing eyes ignored the distance. Mariehua, who was countless miles away, could be seen at a glance. The 5 elder stars who were celebrating happily could not escape Dustless's eyes. Go to hell. Several green prayer beads floating behind him wandered in front of Dustless, and then quickly liquefied, turning into a faint light that condensed in Dustless's palm. Golden Will Reincarnation Explosion. The negligible light in his hand was instantly magnified 10 times, 100 times, and even 1,000 times longer. Dustless was thousands of kilometers away from Mariehua, but under the unlimited extension of the light sword, it became close and within reach. The light sword of doomsday could not accurately hit Mariehua, but it covered the entire red line. Boom. The light swept out and passed through the red line with an unstoppable momentum. It cut through the red line effortlessly, and the majestic red line was cut in half. It was trembling and may be destroyed and flattened at any time. This is the final attack. 5 fingers spread out, condensing a dangerous strength, and the edge faintly shattered the world. Dustless did not aim at Mariehua. After all, the position was thousands of miles away, and he could not pinpoint the specific location. Dustless's target of attack and destruction was always the red line. If the red line is completely shattered and turned into ruins, the 5 elder stars will also be doomed. Bang bang bang. The boundless repulsive force that seemed to cover the entire world erupted, and the red line that was hit directly collapsed. Previously, it had been sliced in half by the tyrannical light sword, and now, it was attacked again by this repulsive force, and the red line that could no longer hold on finally collapsed. The entire red line was in a state of chain reaction, sinking into the bottom of the sea, and Mariehua, who had stood at the top for more than 800 years, also disappeared into the sea. With the support of the moon's repulsive force, the sea also set off a super tsunami that was hundreds of feet high, and it mightily attacked the red line that had already vanished. In the face of this huge disaster that was enough to change the entire world's landscape, the 5 elder stars' methods were exceedingly powerful. Moreover, according to Dustless's point of view, the 5 of them were all ability users. If they fell into the sea, it would be difficult for them to escape even if they grew wings. The next step is the final step. Dustless tapped the surface of the sea with the tip of his foot, and immediately floated towards the moon. The emerald radiance on his body quickly retracted, and he returned to his normal human appearance. The Rinnegan Sharingan gently rippled, and its eye power crossed thousands of miles and was reflected on the surface of the moon. Dustless whispered softly in the corner of his mouth, and the obscure language was difficult for ordinary people to understand. At this moment he made a seal with one hand, and his slightly gloomy face outlined a touch of eagerness. He immediately looked directly at the red moon that had turned into the Rinnegan Sharingan, and did not hesitate to pull the prelude to the destruction of the world. Infinite Tsukuyomi. Illuminate the world. As Wu Chen's voice fell, an incomparably dazzling light poured down in torrents, covering the entire planet. Even the animals that were active in the depths of the sea and in the depths of the earth were unable to escape the capture of the flash. After a pause for a few seconds, the pupils of the creatures affected by the infinite Tsukuyomi turned into the Rinnegan state. Any life in the sea, land, and air is the same. No one can escape the shackles of the light. This white light, which is far more dazzling than the sun, can penetrate the shadow of people. There is one more process left. Dustless in midair swept his eyes as if he could see through the whole world. Finally, his eyes fell on some islands that had not been destroyed, and then he made a seal with both hands. God Tree World descends. The emerald towering tree stretched at the speed of light, and the speed of growth was immeasurable. Just the moment it landed and took root, the tree with strong vitality occupied the entire island. The dense roots grew vigorously, and they were endless with infinite vitality. Finally, they marched to the depths of the sea, and continued to grow until they covered the whole planet. Dense small roots grew out of the large torso, wrapping the humans or animals who had been hit by the infinite Tsukuyomi, like mummies. It slowly sucked the vitality in their bodies until the towering ancient tree bears new fruits. Then everything will stop. It seems that it will take a while. Dustless said helplessly with a frown. At the top of the giant tree, red fruits have been born, but they are only the size of a thumb. Sure enough, it's a ruthless technique, completely using the vitality of all creatures as nourishment. Wu Chen secretly clicked his tongue. Although his mouth was like this, his heart was calm and magnanimous. Although the method was extremely cruel and bloody, he saw through it. People are selfish, and Dustless will not be kind to the world. In the end, he only has one identity from the beginning to the end. He is a predator from other dimensions. Chapter 946. In the Systems World. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. During this period, the tree of God had once again borne fruit. Dustless distributed it to the girls in the system. Although he did not know if they could live forever, at least their appearance could be restored to their youth. This world is changing so fast. Under the cool shade of the tree, Wuchen looked down at the girls who were laughing and chatting with each other with a gentle gaze. For a moment, he was filled with emotions and murmured to himself. In the past he was alone, but now he had countless beauties to accompany him. At this point in his life, Dustless had no desires. You need to be whipped. A melodious sound of nature resounded in the ears. The void beside Wuchen splashed with ripples, and then a beautiful figure stood out. Her hair was blown by the wind, and her shining eyes were extremely wise. She saw through Dustless's thoughts. The shackles that have been troubling you have disappeared. You feel much more relaxed now, right? Hearing this, Dustless pursed his lips and smiled, nodding in agreement. All along, their lifespan has been my worry. Now that it's finally solved, it's natural for me to feel relaxed. Dustless stretched, and coincidentally met the systemlinger's unkind eyes. He was speechless. You're a system, yet you have such groundless fears. Forget it, tell me the location of my next world. The systemlinger nodded, and then her face froze. She said seriously, that world is a little special. You can only enter as a soul. Soul. Dustless's calm eyes rippled, and he said nervously, soul? Don't tell me you want to seal my strength? Seal his strength? What a joke. He spent half a century to gain his strength, and it was sealed just like that. Dustless was naturally unhappy. I'm not sealing your strength, nor am I suppressing your strength. No one can do that, not even me. The systemlinger shook her head, and then said bluntly, your strength is still at its peak, but you'll be entering that world as a soul. I'm not sure what will happen. There's no need to worry about such a small matter. In short, it's fine as long as it doesn't seal my strength. You have to give up something to gain something. Even if there are accidents, it's inevitable. Dustless waved his hand. With his current strength, there was no need for him to be afraid of anyone. As the entire body of the Ten Tails, he was an absolute existence that could not be killed. Not only his physical body, but also his soul. It's good that you have such awareness. Systemlinger slowly nodded, then asked in a light voice, do you have anything else to tell me? Explain? Hearing this, the corner of Dustless's mouth twitched. His eyes were full of suspicion and resentment. He looked at systemlinger, feeling like it wanted him to leave a will or something. Do it. Recalling his heaven-defying abilities, Dustless felt relieved. Boom boom boom. In the cloudless sky above Soul Society, a huge hole appeared in the void after a loud explosion, which woke up the entire Soul Society. The captains of the Godding 13 quickly rushed over. This situation was usually the rhythm of the Great Void invading Soul Society. The huge hole in the sky was getting bigger and bigger, as if it was going to swallow the entire Soul Society. In the depths of the black hole, there was a frightening energy fluctuation. Bang! A black shadow fell out from within and smashed onto the ground, losing consciousness. Who is he? The captains of the Godding 13 frowned and looked at the young man on the ground in confusion. They had no impression of this young man. Is this a disaster? Lock him up for now. The old man with the crutch ordered. He would not allow anything that could threaten Soul Society to happen. Understood, head captain. My head hurts. The drowsy Dustless gradually opened his eyes. Instinctively, he wanted to rub his eyes, but he could not do it. His limbs were bound, and it was difficult to move his body. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong, and his pupils dilated several times. What's going on? With a dull look, Dustless was shocked to find that he was tied up by thick iron chains, and there was an executioner with a knife staring at him fiercely. Moving his line of sight forward, there were a few captains in white feather clothing who were curiously sizing up Wuchen, who was in a daze. What do you want? A bad feeling arose in his heart. Dustless looked at the executioner with a gloomy face. He was also wearing a captain's feather, and his expression was extremely ferocious. However, Dustless was tied up with iron chains. This scene. It seemed like they were going to execute him. Disaster, you have hindered the safety of Soul Society. You must be punished. A man with brown skin, purple hair, and goggles said coldly. He was also a captain. What the F***ck? Dustless vomited blood and cursed in his heart. At the same time, his eyes were extremely terrifying, and cold light gathered. It was impossible for him to just wait for death. At the same time, Dustless was very confused. In the past, his transmigration was very stable, but this time there was a problem. Although the system was usually a little weird, it would never trick him. Since it was not the system, it was obvious that the problem was with Soul Society. Chapter 947. Dustless lowered his head and pondered, trying to figure out this unexpected change. From a transmigrator to a prisoner, even with his vast knowledge, his mind was still in a mess. Boy, do you have any last words? The ferocious voice was filled with sympathy and pity, sizing up Wu Chun with a condescending gaze. A breeze blew over, and the captain's haori fluttered. The black 11 on his back was very conspicuous. Dustless glanced at him and looked away. This guy should be the 10th Kenpachi, Onigami Iasu. Dustless's eyes changed rapidly. He thought to himself, ignore him directly. This unlucky guy will be killed by Gingmu Jianba in the future. I'm not a traveler. I used to live in the 65th Street of Rukuin Street. I just accidentally awakened Zanpakuto. His clear eyes fell on Shunsui Kayakura, Jushiro Yukitake, and the others, and finally fell on the gentle face of the 4th Division Captain, Uno Hanaretsu. In Dustless's impression, these people were the only ones with a conscience. However, as the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Soon someone came to expose him, and it was Uno Hanaretsu, who Dustless had a good impression of. She smiled and said, "It's not good to lie. There's no fluctuation of spiritual pressure in your body, and you don't seem to be dead. Your Zanpakuto is also missing, boy." Dustless's face was full of shock. He didn't expect Uno Hanaretsu to be so smart. He glared at her and quickly thought of a solution. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. This is my Zanpakuto. Ripples splashed in the void, and an ancient Zanpakuto that was much longer than a normal Zanpakuto appeared out of thin air. This is what a strange Zanpakuto. The captains looked at each other and curiously stared at the Zanpakuto floating in the void. It was the first time they saw such a long Zanpakuto. A bunch of idiots, this is the first generation Onigami. Dustless's face was calm, but he was laughing in his heart. He immediately said, "As for why there's no spiritual pressure in my body, the reason is very simple. I was unfortunate to encounter a grand void, and when I fought with them, I exhausted all my spiritual pressure and fainted." Since no one saw it, Dustless could make up whatever he wanted. However, not only did his words not dispel the doubts of the captains, but they also furrowed their brows and looked at Dustless in unison. Seeing his calm and clear eyes without fear, they all looked suspiciously at Ghost Yencheng and Sword 8. The 11th Division was responsible for the safety of the Street of Drifting Souls. It was a serious crime for the Great Void to sneak in. Bastard, don't talk nonsense. Ghost Yencheng's face turned green, and his eyes were burning. The Zanpakuto was out of its scabbard, revealing a sharp cold light under the refraction of the sun. The tip of the blade swept towards Dustless's throat. Xiao! A beautiful figure rushed over and blocked in front of Wu Qin, blocking the saber light that was attacking Wu Qin. Captain Gue Yencheng, the head captain, will make a decision on this matter. That's right. Hearing this, Wu Qin nodded like a chick pecking rice. He immediately said in a strange tone, "He wants to silence me. After I die, there will be no evidence. He can also push all the blame to me." Looking closely, this person was Aizen. At this moment, Aizen was very open. He opened his hands to block the Zanpakuto katana. "Captain Katana, don't be impatient. What Zanpakuto said makes sense. The captain will decide." Yukitake Jushiro stood up for Aizen. His words resonated with all the captains, and they all agreed with Aizen's suggestion. This kid deserves to be called the Movie King. What a beautiful move. No matter what happens in the end, he'll have a good reputation. Dustless was quite unhappy. He looked at the righteous Eisen with disdain. Eisen used Dustless to gain a good reputation. If he didn't know who Eisen was, Dustless would have been fooled by his gentle appearance. In fact, he was a vicious snake. Katana's face was gloomy, and he stared at Dustless with murderous intent. In the end, he chose to take back his Zanpakuto and asked, "Kid, what is your name?" "My name is Dustless." Dustless chose to forget the surname Uchiha. "You said you defeated a Minos Grande?" Ghost Yencheng's eyes were filled with cunning. He sneered. "If you want to prove your innocence, it's easy. The weakest in the Great Void is Jillian. Only the vice-captain can deal with him. If you can kill them, it means that your strength is at least at the vice-captain level." At this point, Ghost Yencheng's 8th swordsman released a spiritual pressure that soared into the sky and pounced on Dustless. "I will suppress my power to the vice-captain level. If you can defeat me, then what you said is true. Otherwise, everything you said before is bullshit, and I will kill you with my own hands." A sinister laugh filled with killing intent spat out from Ghost Yencheng's throat. The meaning was self-evident. This guy. All the captains were unhappy when they heard this, and they were cursing him for being shameless. A captain was a captain. Even if he suppressed his power to the vice-captain level, he could still defeat the vice-captain easily. "Captain Katana, you are going too far." Uno Hualai frowned. Her calm tone was filled with anger. Bullying the weak was a disgrace to the Goding 13, and insulting the title of 8th Blade. 8th Blade meant the strongest swordsman in Soul Society. Yencheng's actions were the complete opposite. "No problem." Staring at the man-eating ghost Yencheng and Saber 8, Dustless's indifferent reply made all the captains look at each other. Chapter 948. The Godii 13 squadrons had a total of 13 squadrons, and the one with the strongest combat power was the 11th Division. And the captain of the 11th Division was an outstanding existence among the captains. This little guy. Uno Hanaretsu's eyes were filled with light as she looked at Dustless with interest. After a while, her eyes dimmed as she did not notice anything different about Dustless. He did not have any Ryatsu and looked very ordinary. The only thing that Uno Hanaretsu appreciated was that he was able to remain calm even when facing a ferocious captain like Ghost Yencheng. This made Uno Hanaretsu look at him in a new light. The fact that he can become a captain means that his strength has been recognized by the head captain. And the previous captains of the 11th Division are all extremely strong, and they are also the best among the captains. Uno Hanaretsu quietly explained as she looked at first-generation Ghost Che's elegant scabbard. "You have awakened Zanpakuto, and you still have a long way to go. There is no need for you to throw your life away. Anyone who offends this man's enemy will die in the end." Dustless looked at Uno Hanaretsu suspiciously and asked curiously, "This is our first meeting, why are you telling me this?" This. Being asked by Dustless, Uno Hanaretsu remained calm and said seriously, "Your body does not have Ryatsu and you are still so calm when facing a captain. If you can survive, I believe that your future will be bright. This way, Soul Society might even have a genius who can stand on the same level as Captain Ikumaru-jin in the future." "Thank you for thinking so highly of me, Captain Unohua. However, I still want to give it a try." Tactfully rejecting Unohua's good intentions, Dustless said resolutely. A faint light flashed in the corner of his eyes. Dustless wanted to provoke this rash Green Blade 8. Other than purposely splashing dirty water on him, he also wanted to test the captain's strength. Since he was not familiar with this place, he needed to at least find a suitable candidate to understand this world. "Where does this brat get his confidence from?" Unohua said in surprise. Cherry's small mouth opened wide, and she was about to try and persuade Cherry when a vigorous voice that was filled with confidence attracted everyone's attention. "Humph." A muffled groan sounded, and the originally warm and cool air became incomparably hot. "Gue Yencheng, remember this clearly. You are the captain of Soul Society. Every move you make represents quiet Soul Society. You are not a hooligan who bullies the weak and fears the strong." The head captain reprimanded coldly. His words were merciless. However, since both sides are willing, Let's go with Captain Ghost Yencheng's suggestion. Remember, don't go too far. The head captain's sunken eyes suddenly widened several times as he spoke in an extremely cold tone. Hehe. I couldn't ask for more. The ferocious-looking ghost Yencheng laughed loudly. No problem, Dustless said indifferently as he met the head captain's gaze. In an extremely spacious area, there were dozens of people around. This place was surrounded by mountains on all sides. It was a sealed valley. Other than a few captains, there was no one else. How strange. Why is that old man Yamamoto purposely biased towards me? Staring at Kenpachi Gue Yenching, who was 10 meters in front of him, Dustless's peripheral vision was revolving around old man Yamamoto, who was holding a walking stick and watching from afar. Kenpachi Gue Yenching was a noble Kenpachi, and Dustless was just an ordinary person. The direction of the heavens should be one-sided. However, the head captain was insinuating that he was suppressing Kenpachi Gue Yenching. This in itself did not make sense. This old man. I think he is looking for an opportunity to eliminate Kenpachi Gue Yenching. The confusion in Dustless's heart disappeared, and he vaguely understood the head captain's intention. Later on, Zaraki Kenpachi single-handedly eliminated Kenpachi Gue Yenching, and he naturally became the captain. Zaraki Kenpachi could be said to be old man Yamamoto's disciple who taught him the way of the sword. Boom boom boom. A purple light burst out from the sky. Under the boundless spiritual pressure, the mountains that bordered the area trembled, and the particles on the ground trembled slightly. Is this spiritual pressure? Smacking his lips, Dustless's eyes flashed with fascination. The stronger a person's soul was, the stronger their spiritual pressure would be. As the Ten Tails, Dustless did not know how strong his soul was. However, one thing was for sure: it was definitely not weak. Roar, roar, roar in the sky. The spiritual pressure condensed into a ferocious beast with a mouth full of fangs. Scorching saliva dripped out of its mouth, and it would burn the ground when it touched it. Is this all you've got? Captain Kenpachi Gue Yenching. Staring curiously at the ferocious beast that was condensing spiritual pressure, Dustless asked curiously, I heard that every Kenpachi Gue Yenching's spiritual pressure is one of the best among the captains. At least you are knowledgeable. This is my strength when I'm at my peak. Just based on the amount of spiritual pressure, I am indeed one of the best in Soul Society. Kenpachi Gue Yenching was extremely pleased with Dustless's flattery. He laughed complacently, and did not care about the disgusted looks from the captains around him. Then he remembered how Dustless exposed him and sneered. Don't think that I will forgive you just because you said something nice. No. You misunderstood me. Dustless shook his head like a rattledrum, and then said bluntly, the spiritual pressure just now, I thought you were suppressing your strength to the level of a vice captain. I didn't expect it to be your full strength. Chapter 949. These words instantly ignited the powder keg that was Ghost Yenching. Whoosh! An afterimage flashed out, and then Ghost Yenching disappeared like a ghost. Boom boom boom. There was a fierce wave of power behind him, and a fist with the weight of Mount Tai came crashing down. Ghost Yenching's face was full of contempt. Dustless was like a statue, standing motionless in the same place, unaware of his existence. He immediately remembered the head captain's warning, and he could not help but lower his strength. If you ignore the head captain's order, you will not be able to bear the consequences. Boom! The air trembled violently, and a visible ripple appeared in the void. Bastard, it hurts! A painful scream came into everyone's ears, and when they looked closely, they saw that Ghost Yenching's huge fist was red and swollen, as if he had hit a meteorite. Not only did he not hurt Dustless, but he himself was in a mess. Even the bones that formed the pinky finger were shattered and annihilated. What's going on? All the captains were shocked. Ghost Yenching's red and swollen fist was obviously not fake, and the problem naturally came from Dustless's body. It seems like he used the hardness of his body to defend. But how can his body be so hard? Her eyes were filled with shock. Unohana Retsu's chest heaved up and down, and her tone was raised a lot. How hard does his body have to be to defend against the head captain's fist with just his body, and even injure the opponent? Unohana Retsu felt that it was unbelievable. This is Ghost Yenching's carelessness, he is always so childish and useless. The head captain looked at Dustless, and then said calmly, "It's impossible for a fist as weak as yours to hurt me." Turning around, Dustless said expressionlessly, even if he was now in a soul state, everything in the past, including armament haki, observation haki, devil fruit, and many ninjutsu, he could use them all. Brat, even if you're getting carried away, you should know when to stop. Ghost Yenching's eyes were bloodshot, and then his body's spiritual pressure surged, and the spiritual pressure soared into the sky, and a fatal deterrence followed. His body felt as if it was carrying a mountain that weighed over 1,000 jin. It was difficult for him to even breathe or move an inch. The coarse hand condensed a blazing flame, and the temperature instantly increased by dozens of times. The small fireball in Ghost Yencheng's hand also turned into a huge fireball. Dao Breaker 31, Red Cannon. The fireball that Yencheng condensed in Saber 8's hand stood out, leaving a crimson afterimage in its wake. The fire was even bigger than Dustless himself. This kind of flame used for illumination. Do you think it's really suitable for battle? Helplessly shaking his head, Dustless sighed. He completely ignored the deterrence of the spiritual pressure, and unsheathed the first-generation Ghost Blade. A cold light pierced through the incoming fireball. Poochie! The powerful fireball instantly split into two, passing by Dustless on both sides. This kid is weird. The captain of the 5th Division, Sosuke Aizen, was puzzled. Of course, it was not in terms of strength. Dustless's weak strength was not worth mentioning in his eyes. To Aizen's surprise, Dustless was calm and composed. He was like a veteran who'd been through hundreds of battles, and wasn't afraid at all. Bastard! Ghost Yencheng's eyes emitted a sinister red light. After exchanging 2 blows, Dustless came out unscathed, but his hand was broken. Just the thought of it made him angry and resentful. Even the captains around him were looking at him differently. Contempt and disdain were clearly visible. He was embarrassed by a nobody. Even if his face was as thick as a city wall, he couldn't stand it. Hum hum hum. A sharp ear-piercing sound of thunder suddenly rang out. They could feel a faint burning pain on their skin. Ghost Yencheng's Sword 8 had actually condensed a huge lightning bolt in his palm. This blockhead seems to be very familiar with Kido. Dustless was quite surprised. Compared to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi, this guy was a genius. Zaraki Kenpachi doesn't know Kido. Hado 63 Thunder Roar Cannon. A straight beam of light whistled, and the deafening roar made people's ears feel stuffy. It left an afterimage in the sky, like a golden spear piercing through the air. This is against the rules, head captain. The captains looked at the head captain in unison. The previous agreement was to maintain the strength of the vice captain. Although the Hado 63 Thunder could be used by the vice captain, Ghost Yencheng's current strength was far beyond the vice captain's. Rules are dead, people are alive. The rules we set are effective. Hueco Mundo has been peaceful for a long time. Yamamoto's old voice was filled with endless vicissitudes of life. Moreover, judging from Wu Chen's calm and composed performance, their anxiousness was completely superfluous. Strange, what did that kid called Dustless do? A surprised exclamation pulled everyone's thoughts back. Looking up, the golden lightning was burning with dark flames, corroding Ghost Yencheng's Hado at a speed visible to the naked eye. When it came into contact with Dustless, the power contained in the flash was almost negligible. Not to mention Dustless, even a normal human couldn't hurt it. Huff! A hot breath came out of Dustless's mouth, and the roaring flash disappeared with the wind. Chapter 950. Dustless was hoping that Kenpachi Ghost Yenching would give up, but he did not expect that it would ignite his anger instead. Ah, what an untactful person. Under the unprecedented anger, Ghost Yencheng's spiritual pressure, which could be said to be limitless, finally stopped holding back. His whole body was like a blazing furnace, trembling with anger. The scorching temperature even wanted to vaporize Dustless's arm. Not only that, even the Lingzi floating in the air started to burn, igniting the surrounding sky in an instant. An angry beast is indeed dangerous, but speaking of which, is he going to use Bankai? Dustless looked expectantly at Kenpachi Ghost Yenching, who was emitting danger signals all over his body. Instead of being afraid, he was happy. He was very interested in the Shurkai and Bankai of the Shinigami. However, Dustless's hope was destined to fail this time. In some aspects, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching was very similar to his successor, Zaraki Kenpachi. He did not seem to know Shurkai and Bankai. Suddenly, he realized that a cold light was falling from the sky. Dustless subconsciously raised his head, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Intersecting black lights of unknown origin fell from the sky. There were only a few of them, but no one dared to underestimate them. Some of the captains even felt that they were too close, and they all distanced themselves from the center of the area. Ignoring Dustless, who was a little stunned, Kenpachi Ghost Yenching bit his lips and said a few forbidden words. 90 of Breaking Tao. Black Coffin. A few simple words came out from his throat, as if it was filled with endless magic. It supported the power of the black lights, and a dark and horrifying purple light pulsated. Under everyone's observation, the purple light became real. The moment it landed, it turned into a huge black coffin. The attack range was huge, and Dustless was also affected. Poochie, Poochie. In the dark environment, thousands of invisible blades attacked. In just a few seconds, Dustless's body was shredded thousands of times. This kind of boring, useless attack, how long are you going to use it for? A long sigh echoed through the dark space. It was hard to imagine that there were creatures that could survive in such a dense environment. Dustless's body was emitting light, completely ignoring the shadow blades attacking him. Every time his body was damaged, it would be repaired by the glint fruit. This cycle continued endlessly. About a few minutes later, Dustless finally lost his patience as he felt the endless shadowless blades attacking him from all directions. He lifted his right foot off the ground, and the whole calf was covered by the golden liquid. Then he mercilessly kicked the dark coffin wall. Lightspeed kick. The black coffin shook fiercely under the impact, and then there was a vibration of caw-caw-caw. Irregular cracks spread out. Through the weak gaps, Dustless could see the outside world clearly. Boom, boom, boom. After struggling for a few seconds, the godlike number 90 Tao breaker collapsed and turned into snow-like fragments. Gulp! Ghost Yenching grunted as his pupils widened. Suddenly, a flash of light shot towards him. Sensing the danger, Ghost Yenching and Saber 8 retreated. Binding path number 61, 6-rod light prison. 6 rays of light attacked from all directions like tracking missiles. Dustless, who was rushing over, was subdued by him. He couldn't move his body and couldn't move at all. Phew! Ghost Yenching heaved a sigh of relief. His entire body felt lighter. However, before he could catch his breath, a cracking sound made his heart jump to his throat. Crack! Without any complicated skills, Dustless took a slight step forward. The 6 light pieces instantly collapsed and disappeared with the wind. Lightspeed kick. The light came straight at him at an extremely fast speed. Ghost Yenching responded immediately, forcibly using the remaining spiritual pressure in his body. A triangular defensive formation faintly flashed. Binding path number 73, mountain toppling crystal. The triangular cone-shaped defensive space was formed. It was airtight, shiny, and looked as hard as diamond. It protected Ghost Yenching, who was hit hard. It collided head-on with the lightspeed kick. Crack, crack, crack. The huge transparent crystal trembled violently, and thumb-sized cracks appeared. In the end, it couldn't withstand the powerful force and turned into nothingness. Ghost Yenching became a fat lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Boom, boom, boom. The blue sky was dominated by crimson. A large flaming mushroom cloud floated in the sky for a long time. Below the ground, Ghost Yencheng's body was charred. His breath was weak, and he was unconscious. He was barely hanging on to life. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures appeared next to Ghost Yenching without warning. They were all wearing the captain's feather. Looking at the miserable Ghost Yenching, they felt like they were going to get rid of him. Although Ghost Yenching was in the wrong for breaking the agreement, beating him like this was equivalent to slapping Soul Society in the face. Captain Unohana. Yamamoto's old eyes glanced at Unohana Retsu. Yamamoto's decision to hand over the half-dead ghost Yin Chung to him was completely his own doing. He couldn't blame anyone else. Unohana Retsu was also an old antique who had lived for thousands of years. She naturally understood the meaning of this shallow sentence. Suddenly, a strange creature floated out from behind her and swallowed ghost Yin Chung. At the same time, Dustless was also surrounded by the 2nd Division's Xing Jun. He definitely wouldn't choose to be captured. Just as he was about to force his way out, the head captain's words made all the captains, including Dustless himself, confused. Chapter 951. Yamamoto was an old monster who had lived for over 1,000 years. Not only was his strength extraordinary, he was also quite intelligent. He stared at Dustless's skinny body with a sharp glint in his eyes. "Young man, are you interested in joining the Godii 13? All the captains looked at Dustless. Soul Society could not turn a blind eye to such a person. Joining the Godii 13 was a must. If he refused, he would probably be punished by the head captain. Of course. A smile appeared on Dustless's face as he accepted. He indeed needed a suitable identity to end the awkwardness of being a vagabond. That would be for the best. The head captain nodded his head in satisfaction. Soon after, he calmly said, "Which division do you intend to join? Based on your strength, any division is extremely suitable." The old man is really biased. Shunsui stood out and complained, but the head captain glared at him and said, "Based on your strength, this old man suggests you join the 11th division. Hearing this, Dustless rejected old man Yamamoto's suggestion without even thinking. A cunning thought appeared in his mind. "I choose to join the head captain's 1st division." These words caused all the captains to be shocked. This was obviously walking right into the trap. This kid. Is this an accident? It doesn't seem like it. Unohana Retsu frowned as she looked at Dustless. Her heart was filled with suspicion. She had a feeling that Dustless was taking a step back in order to advance. After working together for over 1,000 years, Unohana Retsu understood the head captain's personality. He would not tolerate even the slightest mistake. If Dustless chose to join another division, old man Yamamoto would definitely force Dustless to join the 1st division. Now that Dustless took the initiative to join the 1st division, old man Yamamoto's heart was moved. This old man appreciates your kindness, but the 1st division is not suitable for you. As expected, just as Unohana Retsu thought, old man Yamamoto directly rejected Dustless. He looked deeply at Dustless before finally looking at Shunsui Okitake and the others. In the end, his gaze landed on Unohana Retsu. "Captain Uno Flower. Your 4th division doesn't have a suitable vice captain. Let him be the captain. Although the 4th division is a medical team, it's inevitable that there will be accidents. A strong vice captain is also needed. This is the most suitable combination." Old man Yamamoto made the final decision, leaving no room for anyone to refute. "Yuan Lu Zhai, that fellow, forget it." Unohana shook her head and smiled bitterly. Then, she walked towards Dustless with graceful steps. She politely extended her arms and revealed her snow-white wrists. "Please take care of me in the future, Lord Chun." Unohana revealed a gentle smile. It was very charming and made people feel relaxed like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Plans can't keep up with changes. Dustless felt a strange feeling in his heart. He naturally knew what the head captain meant. Rather than saying that he was the vice captain, it was more like having Unohana monitor him. After all, Unohana was absolutely loyal to the world, and her strength was unquestionable. As the first Sword 8, she could be considered an invincible existence. "Please take care of me, Captain Unohana." Dustless politely extended his arm and smiled. The two of them shook hands in a friendly manner under the gaze of all the captains. The soft touch between the 5 fingers made Wuchen's heart flutter, and his mind agitated. "Lord Chun." Unohana reminded Dustless when she saw that he was distracted. Hearing this, Dustless felt awkward. He instinctively let go of Unohana's hand and smiled embarrassedly. He quickly changed the topic and asked in confusion, "Shouldn't the captain of the 4th division be Yuin Toru?" Hualai looked at Dustless in confusion and explained. Yuan is currently only a third seat. With her strength, she's not qualified for the vice-captain position. Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding. He could not help but sigh in his heart. I thought that by showing off a little bit of my strength, I could get a captain to play with. Thinking about the cunning Yamamoto Ryu Chugoku, Dustless knew that his plan had failed. Soul Society would not find someone of unknown origin to be a captain. Congratulations! Shunsui and the other captains came to express their gratitude. Dustless also forced a smile and greeted them one by one. He only returned to the 4th Division with Hualai in the evening. Soul Society was very efficient. At the very least, the 4th Division was so. After hearing that there was a new vice-captain, they quickly tidied up a clean courtyard. Although it was not luxurious, it was clean and simple. It was suitable for self-cultivation. Dustless also felt very tired after the fight with Yancheng and Saber 8 during the day. After taking a casual shower, he was about to go to sleep when the unexpected sound of footsteps chased away his sleepiness and made him full of energy. Something big must have happened for a late-night visit. In the reception hall, Hualai and a graceful woman could be clearly seen. This elegant and mysterious woman was extremely beautiful. She exuded a seductive aura. She had long black hair that was parted to the side. She wore a complicated golden hair ornament and a white cloak with a buckle. Her appearance was beautiful. It's her. After looking at the symbol of the 4th Division behind the mysterious woman, and confirming that he did not see wrongly, Dustless's calm eyes rippled. He activated high-density chakra all over his body in case of any accidents. The 0 Division's codename, Oishi Mamoru, Shudor 1,000 Hands Maru, was definitely not looking for Dustless with good intentions. Chapter 952. Which captain is this? She looks unfamiliar. Dustless walked up with a smile on his face, as if he had never met her before. Thinking about Shidoro's sensei identity, Hana Retsu hesitated for a few seconds before smiling. She's a close friend of mine, Shidoro's sensei. She only gave a simple introduction of her name, and did not mention anything else. Dustless's eyes widened as he pretended to be surprised. I didn't expect Soul Society to have other captains other than the Godii 13. His sparkling eyes fell on the graceful Shidoro 1,000 Hands Maru. Dustless said meaningfully, the Soul Society is really a... Why do you have so much to say? Take off your clothes and stop wasting my time. Shoutoro Senju interrupted Dustless as he shouted impatiently. At the same time, the skeletal arm behind him reached out to grab Dustless. He thought he could easily grab Dustless, since he was just a rookie vice-captain. However, the reality was the complete opposite. What kind of technique is this? Is it the path of ghosts? It doesn't seem like it. It's more like some unknown mysterious ability. Shoutoro Senju analyzed in surprise. His cold face relaxed as he showed a hint of interest. He thought Dustless was just an ordinary vice-captain, but it seemed like he had some skills. Dustless's body glowed with a warm light as he used elementization to ignore the skeletal arm. You're quite strong to be able to defeat Ghost Yancheng. Shoutoro Senju's tone was no longer as cold as before. At least, Dustless felt like he was talking to someone. As a death god, you must have the Death Tyrant outfit. When an ordinary person becomes a death god, they will be born with it. However, you are an exception. Take off all of your clothes, and let me make it for you. The size must be reasonable, and there must not be any mistakes. Shidoro 1,000 Hand Maru said seriously. His words revealed a meticulous attitude. You're saying I have to take off all my clothes? Dustless asked suspiciously. Hearing that Shoutoro Senju's tone was not hostile, Dustless relaxed. He looked at Hana Retsu, and she nodded her head in agreement. When helping others to sew up the Death Tyrant's armor, one needed to be of the right size. Ahem. I'm not ready yet. Do you want to come back tomorrow? Looking at the bony arm behind Shidoro 1,000 Hands Maru and her fervent gaze, Wuchen always had a feeling of being treated as a lab rat. She was also a mad scientist, and her level was even higher than that perverted Cocoon Ray. You're a man. Why are you being more shy than a woman? Wrinkling her eyebrows, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru unhappily scolded. I don't even care, what do you have to say? Could it be that you are afraid that I will eat you? Hearing Shoutoro Senju's words, Dustless's face turned red. He had just taken a shower, and was only wearing his pajamas. After being provoked by Shoutoro Senju, Dustless directly undid his belt. Ahem ahem ahem. Unohana Retsu's expression changed when she saw this. Looking at the blushing Dustless, she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She never thought that the vice-captain she trusted so much would have such a childish side. There are still some things I need to take care of in the 4th division. Goodbye. Bowing slightly, Unohana Retsu left with an awkward expression. Really, someone who has lived for thousands of years is still so shy. The future of Soul Society is worrying. Seeing Unohana Retsu running away, Shoutoro Senju's body floated up and landed beside Dustless, circling around him. You're Dustless, right? Measuring the length of Dustless's arm, Shoutoro Senju's uninterested asked casually. Yes. Dustless answered honestly. At the same time, Shoutoro Senju's hands were not idle. His skeletal hands were extremely nimble, sticking close to Dustless's body and carefully measuring his waist, height and so on. Because he was so close, Dustless could even feel Shoutoro Senju's breathing. How torturous. Dustless bitterly smiled. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's, but it still fell into Shoutoro Senju's ears. You don't know what's good for you. There are so many people who want me to die, but they don't have the fortune. You don't know how lucky you are. At this moment, 2 tender white arms unexpectedly came out of his sleeves and took off Dustless's pajamas, exposing him completely naked in front of Shoutoro Senju's eyes. Seeing this, Dustless's mouth fiercely twitched. He was speechless. Looking up at Shoutoro Senju's eyes, he felt relieved. So she has hands too. His line of sight swept past the delicate white wrist of Shuro Senjumaru. Wuxia was too lazy to think more. Such a person who loved to dress up and loved beauty. She couldn't be so crazy as to cut off her own arm. If it wasn't for this thing down there, people might have thought that you were a woman. Shoutoro Senju's perfect and charming face was moved. Dustless's skin was white and tender, as bright as a gem. It was very smooth, even purer than the skin of an ordinary girl. This woman. Dustless directly closed his eyes, suddenly feeling like he was a human specimen. However, the moment he closed his eyes, something unexpected happened. Chapter 953. Some people's intuition is extremely sharp, especially Dustless, who has experienced the slaughter of 2 worlds. Suddenly opening his eyes, what came into his sight was Shidoro Senjumaru's hostility. His whole body was overflowing with ominous aura, and the flowing air around him was strangely shining and jumping. Looking closely, the water in the atmosphere has condensed into ice. In addition, Shidoro Senjumaru's indifferent face was also surrounded by coldness. The measurement of the Death Lord costume is completed. Now let's change the topic. Taking the initiative to distance himself from Dustless, Shidoro Senjumaru said. When you first came to Soul Society, who caused the huge chaos, not to mention awakening the Zanpakuto, it can fool Yamamoto and the others, but it's useless against me. After saying that, a biting cold murderous aura locked onto Dustless. In a trance, Dustless felt thousands of sharp weapons locked onto him. As if he lied, he would die on the spot. Dustless couldn't deny Shidoro Senjumaru's words. Except for a certain male protagonist in the future, the Zanpakuto of everyone in Soul Society is inextricably linked to the Hyogo Division's first soldier and Nyamiya Wangyu in the Spirit King Palace. One of them named everything in Soul Society, including the Zanpakuto, and the other created the original Zanpakuto of every Shinigami, Shintatsu. Naturally, he knew that Dustless didn't awaken the Zanpakuto. Yes, then what are you going to do? Arrest me immediately? With his plan exposed, Dustless didn't bother to pretend. His voice returned to its usual laziness, casually put on his pajamas, and then leaned against the wall calmly. His undaunted expression caused Shidoro Senjumaru to roll his eyes. It's not like arresting you. You're at most a person with a little strength of unknown origin. There's Retsu monitoring you. And it's best if you can use your strength to serve Soul Society. Shidoro Senjumaru shook his head and said. And then his tone suddenly changed, revealing a hint of warning and threat. However, if one day you do something bad to the world, it's up to you. Dustless picked up a fruit from the fruit platter and started munching on it. After taking a glance at the Shitayuo thousand-hand pill, Dustless completely ignored these words and treated them as nonsense. Rules were meant to be broken, and there was no one who could restrain him. Indeed, I didn't awaken any Zanpakuto, that was just an excuse I came up with to deal with the head captain. Seeing that his lie had been exposed, Dustless was too lazy to continue lying. He patted his chest and swore. But in this life, I will definitely use my life to defend the peace of Soul Society. His resolute voice was sonorous and forceful, causing Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru to be stunned for a moment before he said disdainfully, "This is Soul Society. Even if you want to rebel, you need to have the strength to do so." Dustless shrugged and didn't care about these words. He really didn't plan to destroy Soul Society for the time being. Even if he did, it would be a matter for the future. It wouldn't be too late to wait until he learned the energy of spiritual pressure. In reality, the Calamity invasion wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like this had never happened before. Shinozaki Ichigo and the first Shinigami acting Silver City Kongo could be counted as such to a certain extent. Now that Dustless was the vice captain of the 4th Division, it was equivalent to surrendering to Soul Society in disguise. Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill and Division 0 were happy to see this. Since it wasn't you who tore the sky above Soul Society, Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill lowered his head and pondered. He was puzzled. Soul Society's sky was inexplicably torn apart by someone, and it was even filled with Greater Void's spiritual pressure. Actually, it's very simple. This sentence attracted Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill's attention. He raised his eyebrows slightly and immediately said ungratefully, "Why are you blindly involved? This is none of your business. Also, you're not allowed to tell anyone that you met me today." Remembering Division 0's sensitive identity, Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill made 3 rules. "I'm the person involved." Glancing at Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill, Dustless continued to count. The types of voids can be roughly divided into 3 types. The first type is the top-level voids, the second type is the Ajuchas, and the last type is the unenlightened Jillian. At this point, Dustless obviously raised his voice as he recalled the scene when he transmigrated. His eyes shone brightly as he said, "In the torn sky at that time, it was actually filled with the lowest-level greater voids like Jillian. There was no Ajuchas or the higher-level Vastotad. There were a lot of them, definitely not less than 1,000. Impossible." Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill's face changed upon hearing this. The spiritual pressure around his body was extremely dense, like boiling water bubbling. It was extremely terrifying. "I've already said it. It's up to you to believe it or not." Sipping his tea, Dustless turned a deaf ear to Shitayuo Thousand-Hand Pill's murderous intent. His words had actually pointed out who the mastermind behind this was. As everyone knew, Jillian belonged to the lower voids and had no intelligence. Although it could use the black cavity to invade the modern world, it was usually ordered by the higher-level Ajuchas. Under the situation where there was no one controlling it, Jillian would definitely not invade Soul Society on a large scale, let alone thousands of them. However, there was now a large number of Jillian in Soul Society, but there were no Ajuchas or Vastotad-level greater voids controlling it. What did this mean? It indirectly indicated that there was someone secretly supporting Soul Society to pave the way for the greater voids to invade. Chapter 954. So far, the only person who wanted to harm Soul Society was Sosuke Aizen. Although this was just Dustless's baseless conjecture, only Sosuke Aizen and his 2 lackeys, East Sensei and Jin Ikamaru, were capable of mobilizing thousands of Killian and invading Soul Society without anyone noticing. It wasn't difficult for the 3 captains to mobilize thousands of Minos to invade Soul Society. If Jin and East Sensei were Sosuke Aizen's lackeys, their cooperation would have been flawless. However, even Aizen didn't expect dustless sky to suddenly cross over. His precise plan wasn't messed up. Thousands of grand voids were enough to destroy the world, but compared to the system, it was just a drop in the ocean. So the Minos didn't come out alive, and dustless fell instead. Do you know what you mean by that? Shuro asked with a pale face. A layer of ice covered her face. Sigh. Looking at the murderous Shoutoro thousand-handed Maru, Wu Chun sighed and looked up at the wooden ceiling. I'm just too kind. I obviously know that I'm going to die, but I still chose to tell the truth. Hey. Hearing this, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru's pretty face was filled with astonishment. For thousands of years, this was the first time she met someone who was so shameless. He slandered Yenchung Kenpachi for no reason, and even beat him up violently to establish his prestige. Now he actually shamelessly said that he was kind. This was the first time Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru had met such a person. Are you sure? Remembering Dustless's strength when he defeated Kenpachi ghost Yenchung, Shidoro Thousand Hands Maru could not help but hesitate. He lowered his voice and asked with slight anticipation. What's the benefit of me tricking you? Taking a deep look at Shidoro Thousand Hand Maru, Wuchen didn't answer but asked instead. Shidoro Thousand-Handed Maru nodded thoughtfully. He reluctantly agreed with Wu Chen's words. Everything was about motive. As far as the current situation was concerned, Wu Chen indeed had no benefit in deceiving her. That's all for today. I'll come back for you in the future. After taking a deep look at Wu Chen, Shidoro Thousand-Hand Maru floated away, leaving Wu Chen with a view of his back. In the end, he gradually turned into an ink dot and disappeared. I finally got rid of this jinx. Dustless was sleepy, but because of Unohana Retsu and Shuro's invasion, he didn't feel sleepy at all. He strolled around the courtyard in boredom. Looking at the stars in the sky, his mind wandered, thinking about the current situation. I can only wait a while. Even if I kill Kenpachi Ghost now, Yamamoto won't let me take the captain's position. Dustless thought to himself. He had only been in Soul Society for a day, or even less than a day. Yamamoto would never be so absurd as to hand over the 11th division to him. Sosuke Aizen, staring at the bright moon in the sky, Dustless was speechless. Even if he told them the truth, Soul Society would think he was making it up. They might even arrest Dustless as a suspect. Accusing the captain without evidence was not a small crime. Aizen also had two loyal lackeys, Ikamaru Jin and Higashi-sensei. They worked together perfectly, and no one could take down Aizen and the others. In the gloomy underground world, there were all kinds of sophisticated instruments monitoring every corner of Soul Society. Even the captain's first division was under the observation of these instruments. Captain Aizen, should we continue with our plan? In the dark space, a malicious voice sounded, with a hint of schadenfreude. With the help of the fluorescent light on the screen, 3 figures could be clearly seen walking out of the dark space. Looking closely, it was Sosuke Aizen, his lackeys Tei-sensei and Jin. Of course, how can we stop our plan because of a nobody? That young man called Dustless is far from enough to influence us to give up our plan. Sosuke Aizen's voice was very soft. His expression was gentle, but there was a coldness that penetrated deep into the soul. Just like Dustless said, this man was a poisonous snake hiding in the dark. Aizen-sama. The creation of the Great Void inside Shinozaki Ichigo was about to be completed, but it was destroyed by that kid. Should we? Tei-sensei made a throat-slitting gesture at Sosuke Aizen. Hearing this, Aizen stopped. For the first time in his life, he showed a rare look of confusion. At that time, he was secretly manipulating the Great Void to sneak into Soul Society from the Black Cavity. Who would have thought that the plan would not be able to keep up with the changes? A space-time storm suddenly appeared in the Black Cavity, destroying thousands of Jillians. Only Dustless came out unharmed. Aizen's plan failed on the verge of success. Those Minos voids were actually tools he used to create voids. To create voids, he needed a large number of voids and Shinigami souls, but they were all destroyed in an instant. Just thinking about it made Aizen angry. Aizen's expression was gloomy. He wasn't happy that things had gotten out of his control. It doesn't matter if we kill him, but we don't need to do it ourselves. Gue Yincheng has a deep grudge with him. We can use him to get rid of that dustless. Aizen Sokyai said viciously. Chapter 955. Complicated data was displayed in the various sophisticated instruments. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to understand them, let alone understand them. Captain Aizen, the experiment is at a critical stage, and we don't have many Minos on hand. Shouldn't we go to Hueco Mundo and catch a few? Ikamaru-jin said with a smile. The corners of his mouth were raised high, and his eyes were narrowed into slits. He looked like a cunning fox harboring evil intentions. Indeed. East Deity agreed after hearing this. Forget about going to Hueco Mundo. Although Kyoka Suigetsu's ability is invincible, it doesn't mean it's invincible. If we sneak out of Soul Society, it's hard to avoid exposing ourselves. Just like today, there's no need to do it personally. We can just catch a few to test, and we can also injure the Shinigami. It's the best of both worlds. Aizen touched his glasses and said expressionlessly. There was no doubt that once the Minos successfully invaded Soul Society, they would wreak havoc, and there would be endless casualties. However, this had nothing to do with Sosuke Aizen. He wanted to be on the same level as the gods, and even become a god. The life and death of mortals was nothing to him. The next morning, the sun was bright and there were no clouds in the sky. Dustless came to the 4th Division early after a good night's sleep. He thought there was a mission, but when he arrived, he was shocked. A large number of members were bored and gathered together to sketch and draw. They were having a lot of fun, and some were even arranging flowers. If I stay with you guys every day, when will I be able to leave the 4th Division? Wu-chan muttered to himself. His heart, which was surging with passion, fell from the clouds to the bottom and shattered all over the ground. While he was distracted, a beautiful figure appeared in his eyes and pulled Dustless back to reality. What did Senjumaru say to you yesterday? You're so distracted, Chinkuan. A soft voice entered his ears. Unohana Retsu walked over with a smile. She had an amiable temperament, and the first impression she gave was that she was very friendly and approachable. Following behind her was Kazuto Toru, who was currently in the 3rd Division. She was the future 4th Division vice-captain, but because of Dustless's strong interference, her position was temporarily taken. Nothing much. We just chatted for a bit, and asked about what happened that day. Dustless said with a smile. Unohana Retsu's expression showed that she did not know anything, which meant that Shudora Thousand-Hand Maru had been very tight-lipped about their conversation yesterday. It's that simple? Ripples appeared in Unohua's watery eyes as she asked doubtfully. This is definitely the truth. How would I dare to lie to Captain Unoflower? Dustless guaranteed, his face not turning red at all. The doubt in Unohua's eyes disappeared, and she reluctantly accepted Dustless's explanation. She then looked at the disappointed Dustless and said, This is the situation of the 4th Division. Everyone spends their days cultivating their minds. Only when war breaks out can the 4th Division truly shine. Letting an ambitious person like you stay in the 4th Division is indeed a bit of a waste of talent. Unohua said sympathetically. Even if Dustless hit it well, she could still see the burning flames in the depths of his eyes. After living for more than 1,000 years, her experience was dozens of times greater than Dustless's. It doesn't matter. A person's life is always full of twists and turns. Let nature take its course. Moreover, it's not as if I have nothing to do. I still have a lot of things to ask Captain Unohua. Dustless said with relief. He still had not figured out the origin of spiritual pressure, so he could use this time to ask Unohua about it. However, everything was just as Dustless had said. A person's life was full of unknowns and hard to predict. Just as he became indifferent to his desire to become a captain, the heavens gave him face. Ka. The sky above the 4th Division suddenly exploded, revealing a long and narrow hole that was clearly connected to another world. From time to time, the roars of wild beasts could be heard. Of course, along with the roars came a wave of spiritual pressure, and a large number of huge figures walked out from the hole. The figures covered the sky and blocked the sunlight. The entire 4th Division's building was dark and filled with despair. What is this? The members of the 4th Division hurriedly walked out of the building and looked up at the endless Minos walking out of the black hole. Their faces were filled with fear, and some of them even felt their legs go soft. The 4th Division belonged to the Medical Division, and their combat power was their biggest weakness. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Several Minos opened their mouths and spat out dangerous red light, which condensed into a huge red sphere. The blood-red light emitted a dangerous wave. Void flash. Unohua, who had rushed out with Dustless, was shocked. She gathered a high density of spiritual pressure in her palm, and was about to use Hato to destroy the sphere when the sky was filled with flashes of light. Yasakani no Magatama. The dazzling flashes of light whizzed out, and Jillian, who was more than 10 meters tall and was not good at moving, became the perfect target. Roar roar roar. The surrounding Minos cried out in pain. Their bodies were mercilessly pierced through, and there were dozens of holes. Just one wave of attack was enough to take away a whole group of Jillian. How did these Minos invade Soul Society? Unohua said with an ugly expression. Compared to that, I'm more curious. When did Jillian become so smart? Dustless sharply sensed that something was wrong and asked Unohua. The 4th Division is a medical team. Their combat power is weak, but they are the medical protection of the Grim Reaper. These brainless Jillian chose to attack the 4th Division first. They are too smart. Chapter 956. Dustless was not the only one who was confused. Even Unohua Lai was confused. After a while, a cold light flashed through her eyes. Unohua Lai was a meticulous person. After hearing Dustless's hint, she immediately understood what he meant. I hope that Jillian's arrival in the 4th Division is just a coincidence. Looking at Jillian, who kept coming out of the black hole, Unohua Lai prayed in her heart. Roar. The entire Soul Society was filled with the roars of great voids. It was not only limited to the 4th Division. The entire Soul Society was buried by the Great Void's attacks. Rice Bucket, what are you useless people doing? A bunch of Great Voids invaded Soul Society, and you guys didn't even know about it. How am I going to explain this to the head captain? You bastards are only fit to be experiment subjects. Mayuri Lai's furious roar came from the 12th Division. Through the surveillance screen, he could clearly see the sorry state of Soul Society. As if they had agreed beforehand, the Great Voids came from all directions, from all kinds of tricky and unexpected corners, wantonly destroying Soul Society. Mayuri Lai almost vomited blood when he saw this. His body turned cold. With such a huge mess, he would definitely not have a good time with the head captain. Shinra Tensei. The corner of his clothes suddenly bulged. A repulsive force broke out of his body, forming a perfect 360-degree defense. Bang! The red void disappeared. It was repelled by the repulsive force from Dustless's body. An explosion occurred in the distant horizon, and a blazing fire engulfed everything. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Immediately after, the first-generation Ghost Blade came out of its scabbard. With a wave of his hand, a huge red slash appeared, creating ripples in the air. Poochie. The dumb Jillian did not even think of dodging this skill. His mountain-like body was instantly penetrated by the red light, and split into two. There are so many of them. Dustless's line of sight was locked within 1,000 meters. To his astonishment, he discovered that there were more than 1,000 Great Voids wandering around Soul Society. If one didn't know better, they might even think that this was Hushi Ring. Dustless chuckled in his heart. His dispirited mood was swept away. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him to make a name for himself. If he could show off a little of his strength, he might be able to replace any captain that was killed in the future. It's time to retreat, Lord Chen. Just as he was lost in his thoughts, Unohua Lai's serious voice sounded. A black butterfly suddenly appeared in her hand. Dustless knew that this was the hell butterfly that Soul Society used to communicate with each other. Most of the members of the 4th Division are in hiding, so there's no need to worry. Head Captain, inform all division captains and vice captains to head to the 1st Division for an emergency meeting. With that, Unohana Lai used transient step to leave. leaving behind several afterimages in the air. Dustless furrowed his brows when he heard this. Soon after, he followed Unohuaretsu and left. With so many Jillians, it would be impossible to kill them all in a short amount of time. The atmosphere in the First Division's building was extremely tense. In the spacious hall, the captains were divided into 2 rows and stood in an orderly manner, their expressions meticulous. Behind them were Dustless and the other vice-captains. The scene was abnormally solemn and heavy, and even the usually sloppy Jingle Chunshui had a serious expression on his face right now. The head captain, Old Man Yamamoto, was not as kind as before. His sunken eyes were bulging, and his eyes were bloodshot. Even though the head captain tried his best to remain calm, his body was still slightly trembling. The walking stick in his hand was also slightly trembling. The Ryujin Jaka hidden within it also sensed Old Man Yamamoto's anger, and let out a clear cry. The atmosphere was even more terrifying. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. They were afraid that the strongest death god would not be able to suppress the flames, and would kill them all in one fell swoop. This is probably the first time in 1,000 years that this old man is so angry. Dustless, who was standing behind Unohana Lai, thought. He could even see the veins on Old Man Yamamoto's forehead bulging. It was obvious that he was about to go berserk. It's most likely related to this old man. He's always happy to see things that are not good for Soul Society. Dustless muttered to himself as he looked at Aizen. Even though it was just an unfounded guess, he was sure that the mastermind behind this was Aizen Sosuke, the king of Hueco Mundo Beiligan. He was Vasto Lord, a predator at the top of the pyramid. However, he still had self-awareness. He knew the consequences of attacking Soul Society rashly. He didn't have the courage to confront the head captain. Vasto Lord could crush captains, but he was only an ordinary captain. Even the heaven-defying Vasto Lord was at the end of his rope. Captain Nya. After a moment of silence, the head captain's gaze finally fell on Mayuri. Mayuri was quite funny. He was afraid that the head captain would see him, so he retreated as far as possible. He even stayed at the same level as Dustless and the other vice-captains. But even so, he couldn't escape Old Man Yamamoto's eyes. Head captain. Mayuri's face was ugly as he walked out of the line. He looked miserable as if his parents had died. Dustless couldn't help but laugh when he saw that look of regret on his face. Chapter 957. The mission of the 12th Division was to develop items suitable for Shinigami and monitor Soul Society, including the movements of the main world and Hueco Mundo. I will listen to your explanation, but the most important thing now is to expel the Minos. Pung pung. At the end of his sentence, the captain knocked the ground with his cane. The 1st Division was silent, only Mayuri was embarrassed. No one cared about him. The whole world seemed to have abandoned Mayuri. His negligence caused Soul Society to be breached, and some divisions suffered heavy losses. The Minos and Soul Society are like turtles in a jar. There is no need to care about them. Just temporarily seal the Black Chamber where they invaded and terminate the connection between Soul Society and Hueco Mundo. A gentle, steady, wise and far-sighted voice resounded. Wuxia noticed that the unexpected voice was quite familiar. He immediately looked for the source of the voice. Captain Mayuri is innocent. Hueco Mundo invaded Soul Society for the first time in hundreds of years, and Hueco Mundo is Bailgang's territory. Soul Society can't monitor it. The one who stood up for Mayuri was the captain of the 5th Division, Sosuke Aizen. This old man is shameless. He's the one behind all this, and Aizen is the one who took advantage of Mayuri. Now he's standing up for that old pervert? Dustless thought to himself. He thought he was shameless enough, but compared to Aizen, he paled in comparison. Captain Aizen is right. The 12th Division's ability is limited. Although we are suspected of negligence, we can't reach Hueco Mundo. Ise-sensei followed. We should immediately send troops to attack Hueco Mundo. Ikamaru-jin said. Although he wasn't helping Aizen, he was helping Mayuri escape. After Aizen said this, Yukitake Jushiro also agreed. Shunsui Kaiokura was his friend, so he also supported him. Sajin, who had a good relationship with Ise-sensei, also nodded. Mayuri looked at Aizen gratefully. Aizen and his lackeys have already become friends with so many people. Lin Yin sighed. Dustless was speechless. Aizen's words were meant to help Cocoon escape, but he had the support of 7 or 8 captains. It wasn't unreasonable for him to be able to control Soul Society in the future. Now this was a disguised form of roping in Nirvana Cocoon. No wonder he would be able to do well in Soul Society in the future. Then let's do as Captain Aizen said. Temporarily seal the entrance of Soul Society. Yamamoto made the decision after some contemplation. The acting of these 3 in collusion is worthy of the title of Best Actor. Dustless sighed in his heart. He was too lazy to meddle in other people's business. He was just an ordinary vice captain now. The number of deaths in Soul Society had nothing to do with him. The 80th district of Soul Society's Drifting Soul Street was originally a remote area, and it was usually a place where villains gathered, so very few death gods paid attention to this area. Therefore, it was the only place for the Great Void to invade. From a long and narrow crack in the void, groups of Jillian walked out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After a while, many figures suddenly appeared on the open ground that was covered in blood and flesh. Can they do it? Wu Chen said doubtfully as he looked at the Death God Ghost sect members who were preparing for the battle. He felt that this group of fat, big-eared, and strangely dressed ghost sect members were not reliable. No problem, the Keto are good at sealing enchantments. If they can't do it, then our group of medics and combatants can't do it either. Fuchsia, who was temporarily in charge of the 3rd seat, said confidently, maybe we can't deal with the Great Void above Ajuches, but dealing with Jillian is no problem. Dustless didn't say anything more and stood still like a statue. After a while, the Ghost Path sect members who had finished their preparations finally took action. They all used instant steps to rush towards the sky. After clearing out Jillian in the long and narrow black cavity in a short period of time, a transparent golden membrane covered it, repairing the broken sky at a speed visible to the naked eye. It's finally over. Fuchsia breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Just when everyone thought it was over, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in the black hole that was about to close, and a sharp sound like lightning pierced their ears. It blasted towards the transparent golden membrane. Boom boom boom. An earth-shattering explosion soared into the sky. The seemingly sturdy film was easily torn apart like paper scraps. The ghost Taoists who did not manage to escape in time were vaporized by this merciless flash. They were wiped out, and not even their bones were left. The destructive Ryatsu fluctuations shocked the entire Soul Society, and all the captains exclaimed. They encountered a great void. This guy is... A white figure walked out of the shattered black hole. Dustless looked up, and the great void in front of him was unexpectedly familiar. Did Aizen unify Hueco Mundo now? Looking at the great void overlooking Soul Society in the black hole, Dustless frowned and said, under the perception of observation Haki, there seemed to be more than one great void in this black hole. The Ryatsu fluctuations were also different, and several of them were mid-level great voids at the Ajuches level. After careful observation, he was surprised to find that among them, there was Vasto Lord whose Ryatsu density was much higher than Ajuches. Chapter 958. The black cavity that was gradually healing was shattered into pieces by the void flash, revealing a bigger black hole. A shiny gold upstart walked out from it. His whole body was cold and shiny. Especially under the sunlight, his whole body was extremely dazzling. Looking closely, it turned out that there were countless diamond rings on his fingers. The king of Hueco Mundo, Baligan Ruesan Gang? Looking at Baligan, Dustless was somewhat surprised. It was not because he was afraid of his title as the king of Hueco Mundo, or because he was the top grand void of Vasto Lord, but because he was not afraid of death and his spiritual thunder hit Dustless. Looking up at the sky, looking at Baligan who was standing in the sky, this old man was not afraid at all. It seemed like he wanted to fight with the head captain alone. Ants, who allowed you to look at me? Go to hell and repent. Lowering his head to look at the group of reapers on the ground, Baligan condensed an extremely dense black sphere at his fingertips. Due to the terrifying power, The void around the void flash was faintly distorted. Go to hell. The demonic black luster tilted down and blasted towards the ground mercilessly. Boom, boom, boom. The earth-shattering explosion swept across, mercilessly destroying Seoul society. The 80th district of Luhun Street was wiped out in an instant. The bottomless pit on the ground was particularly eye-catching, and the affected mountains were forcibly flattened. A bunch of ants, you don't cooperate with this old man to fight. Smacking his big mouth full of fangs, Baligan said very disdainfully. The captain level was not enough in his eyes, let alone a group of unknown reapers. Whoosh! On the ground burning with black smoke, a golden light suddenly appeared. The light spread rapidly and evaporated the black smoke in an instant. What the hell is this? It didn't die. Baelgan's smug face drooped, and his tone was filled with uncertainty. Vasto Lord's void flash, not to mention these cannon fodder death gods. Even the captain would lose a layer of skin if they were hit. The slightest carelessness would cause them to fall. And the reapers below were intact, supported and protected by a huge golden barrier. Whoosh! 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 A straight beam of light shot into the sky, and the sky seemed to have been shattered by a divine sword, leaving behind afterimages that would never dissipate. Then, an indifferent and emotionless voice lingered in Bailey's ears, lingering in the void for a long time without dissipating. It's just like what you said earlier. You're not worthy to fight with me. So go repent and atone for your sins in hell. Bailey was stunned and suddenly felt that his body had become much heavier. He raised his head and the scene that greeted him left him dumbfounded. Dustless was standing on the crown and talking to him in a tone that sounded like he was looking down on an ant. Bastard, you dare to step on my head. You are courting death. Baeligan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was infuriated. His trembling voice was full of shock and hatred, as dangerous as a barrel of gunpowder that was about to explode. Full of killing intent, the rapidly corroding black spiritual pressure broke out of his body. It was as passionate as the waves of a river, stirring up the flames of Baelgang. Death's breath. The corrosive aura of aging surged into the sky, carrying with it Baelgan's anger. It sprayed towards Dustless, who was stepping on his head, wanting to erase his entire person. Naive. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes were calm and indifferent, allowing the black aura of aging to wrap around him. Humph, you dare to step on my head. This is your end. Baeligan laughed coldly, revealing a touch of satisfaction in his words. Looking up, Dustless's entire person was destroyed by the aura of aging. This was an invincible ability. No creature in this world could survive being wrapped by it. Vice Captain he. Staring at Dustless, who was swallowed by layers of black smoke in the sky, Brave Hush was shocked. Her eyes were filled with despair. Not only her, but the Grim Reapers also had the same expression. Baeligan, the king of Hueco Mundo, was known for his ferocity in Seoul society. Vice Captain Dustless is very strong, there's no need to worry. Brave Hush comforted herself, remembering that Dustless defeated the 11th Division's captain, Ghost Yenching Kenpachi, and suddenly said with confidence, he'll be safe. Laughable, ignorant, safe and sound? You want me to be safe under my hands? Who do you think I am? I'm the king of Hueco Mundo, Baeligan Ruesan Gang. Even though Brave Tiger's voice was as soft as a mosquito, it was still heard by Bailey. He immediately snorted disdainfully and opened his mouth. Just as he was about to use his mouth to teach this god of death, who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, a lesson, a burst of eternal ridicule came from within the black smoke of despair. Baeligan, who do you think you are, always thinking that you're special, an omnipotent existence? This iron law may prevail in Hueco Mundo, but from the beginning to the end, you've got one thing wrong. This is Seoul society, not your Hueco Mundo. In the extremely corrosive power of aging, a ripple visible to the naked eye suddenly came out. Shinra Tensei. As the voice fell, the power of aging surrounding Dustless suddenly disappeared, and was easily bounced away by the repulsive force, revealing a handsome young man. Of course, there was also the flash of light that had been condensing at the bottom of his feet for a long time. Intact? Bastard! Are you kidding me? Could it be that you're transparent, and can ignore the aura of aging? The shocked Baeligan roared in disbelief. and his tone had a hint of sharpness similar to the roar of steel. Transparent? You're quite smart. In a sense, I'm indeed a transparent person, but to put it more technically, I'm a shining person. This kind of thing certainly won't work on me. Dustless replied indifferently, and immediately his body flashed with light, and swept to Baelgan's side at the speed of light. The flash of light condensed at the bottom of his feet fell heavily on Baelgan's head. Lightspeed kick. Chapter 959. The benefits of killing Baelgan were self-evident. Not only would his status in Soul Society rise, but it would also destroy Aizen's plan to rule Hueco Mundo. In fact, Aizen relied on Baelgan to control Hueco Mundo. Later, Hueco Mundo became Aizen's base camp. Dustless's purpose in coming to this world was very simple. He wanted to replace Soul King and become the new master of the three realms. Aizen naturally had the same plan, but Dustless couldn't let him do as he wished. Now was a golden opportunity to weaken him. Dustless wouldn't let it go. Death's breath. Hollow's probing nerves were abnormally sharp. Sensing an unprecedented danger, Baelgan did not hesitate to use his best move. Not only could the aging gas attack, but it also had a perfect defense. It could corrode almost any attack. This was his trump card against Dustless. Or rather, it was his only trump card. Your attacks are useless against this old man. Baelgan looked at the black gas raging all over his body. It seemed like it could corrode even space and time. He sighed in relief. His self-esteem recovered a lot. You're really stupid. Dustless looked at Baelgan with pity. Then he suddenly raised his right hand. A pitch-black hole appeared in his palm, and a strong gravitational force erupted. Wanxiang Heaven's Pull. Baelgan's body that was standing upright in the sky immediately began to sway uncontrollably. Even though he tried his best to control the shaking of his body, he still flew towards Dustless uncontrollably. Boy, you're courting death. Baelgan roared loudly. He was so angry that he laughed. The fangs on his huge head were wide open. He wanted to swallow Dustless alive. An even more dense aging aura erupted from his body. He wanted to completely annihilate Dustless. Before Dustless appeared, Baelgan's number one enemy was Sosuke Aizen. But now, Dustless left a footprint on his head that would never disappear. This glorious number one enemy was replaced by Dustless. Even Baelgan, who was on the Rage Index, wanted nothing more than to perish together with Dustless to vent the hatred in his heart. Idiot, you want to touch my body? Not to mention you. Even your master can't touch my body with pure physical attacks. Dustless shook his head. Baelgan was attacked by the gravitational force of the 10,000 Mammoth Heaven summoning. He did not dodge because there was no need to. Elemental transformation was almost immune to all physical attacks in this world. The moment Baelgan touched Dustless, a majestic repulsive force erupted from his body. He smiled slyly. Shinra Tensei. Baelgan's face was full of hope. He thought that he could destroy Dustless, but he didn't expect that the violent repulsive force would suddenly hit him and shatter his dream. Even his aging aura was bounced away, teasing the king of Hueco Mundo like a monkey. This dramatic scene encouraged the Shinigami who were trapped in a bitter battle. They gritted their teeth and fought desperately with the Minos Voids. For a time, the Shinigami on the battlefield was in a state of defeat. It was strangely one-sided. The Shinigami captains who were rushing over from afar also widened their eyes when they saw this scene. When did the king of Hueco Mundo become so weak? That damned bastard. One day, I'll definitely kill him and avenge my humiliation. Kenpachi Ghost Yencheng, who used Shuinpa to rush over, had a green face. He held his Zanpakuto tightly, and the muscles on his face were swaying, dazzling people. Originally, when he noticed a huge Ryatsu here, his first thought was to come and destroy the Minos Voids and wash away the shame of being defeated by Dustless. Now, he never thought that he would become the best audience to witness Dustless's strength. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. This kid. It seems like he didn't use his full strength that day. Unohana Retsu also put away her Zanpakuto. Her beautiful eyes were filled with light, and her calm heart was swallowed by the storm. At this moment, the ones who were the most upset were Sosuke Aizen and the others. Useless trash, he couldn't even fight back against a vice-captain. It's a miracle that he has been the king of Hueco Mundo for hundreds of years. Tozai wanted to curse, but Dustless sucked Beiligin over and then bounced him away with a repulsive force. Such a funny scene was seen by Aizen, Tozai, and Ikamaru Jin, who were rushing over, and they were angry. It's not that Beiligin is useless. He is the famous Vasto Lord. Ikamaru Jin was not the same as before. Although his face was still very sly and frivolous, his tone was obviously filled with caution. Vasto Lord was played like a monkey. Ikamaru Jin suddenly felt that his brain was not enough, and his view of the world was turned upside down in an instant. Indeed, it's not that Beiligin is weak, it's that his enemy is not in the same dimension as him. Aizen agreed with Ikamaru Jin. Vasto Lord's strength was well known, but the enemy was too strong. The situation this time is really bad. Aizen's expression was very gloomy. His eyes kept twitching as he looked at Yamamoto, Unohana Retsu, and Shunsui Kiraku rushing over. This was the first time in his life that he had this strange feeling. Beiligin was currently Sosuke Aizen's most important chess piece, and he was also using him to control Hueco Mundo. But it was easier said than done to let Beiligin go. Even Aizen, who had been calm for 100 years, couldn't help but burst into flames. He looked at Dustless with a murderous look in his eyes. Aizen's face hurt. Unknowingly, he felt like he had been slapped by Dustless. However, he couldn't say anything. Both of his plans had been ruined by this brat. Chapter 960. Beiligin was shocked. He looked around with his skull, but didn't find any trace of the Great Void. He looked at Aizen Sosuke, but the hidden big boss ignored him directly. This is the end of the surprise attack on Soul Society's ninjas. Looking around at the group of captains who were rushing over, Bailgan's bones turned black. Before he left, he glared fiercely at Dustless and quietly said, "Just wait and see." Snap. With a snap of his fingers, the void behind Beiligin suddenly burst open, and a long and narrow dark hole appeared, and an ancient aura of decay and a strong murderous intent came from it. There was no need to think. The other side was undoubtedly Hueco Mundo. Want to run? You want to run away in front of so many people? What do you think Soul Society is? The sky instantly turned bright red, burning with blazing flames. In the distance, a huge fire tornado swept over. The head captain was like a god of fire, stepping on the flames as he rushed over. Matsumoto! The tornado-shaped hot flames fell from the sky, covering Bailgan's entire body, blocking his way and limiting his range of movement to a narrow flame. Fortunately, this is Soul Society. If it was in Hueco Mundo, Yamamoto would have no scruples, and it would be difficult for him to escape death. Beiligin, who was surrounded by flames, was calm, and his whole body erupted with aging aura, corroding the flames at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of Ryujin Jaka was extremely powerful, terrifying enough to destroy Soul Society, but the only disadvantage was that it was too powerful, and it didn't distinguish between friend and foe. Some of the most basic moves could also severely damage Soul Society. Generally, when the captain used Ryujin Jaka, he was forced to use it, or he suppressed the power to the lowest level. If it was in Hueco Mundo, maybe the furious captain would have already killed Beiligin. Goodbye, death gods of Soul Society. I will be back in the future. Beiligin, who had escaped from the prison, roared at the top of his lungs, and the black hole behind him connected to Hueco Mundo opened, and half of his foot stepped into it. Bastard, how dare you! Yamamoto's arm holding Ryujin Jaka trembled, and he couldn't wait to burst out with all his strength and kill Beiligin instantly. Of course, the consequence of doing so is that part of Soul Society may be buried with him. Looks like he escaped, Sosuke Aizen, who had just arrived, breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at the black hole that was gradually closing, his tense heart calmed down, and a gentle smile appeared on his face. Beiligin was his most important chess piece, and it was related to the layout of Hueco Mundo. He could not afford to lose him. Aizen, who was bored, glanced left and right, inadvertently glanced at Dustless's smirk. His heart skipped a beat as he had a bad feeling. Brat, you want to capture me alive? Unless you can also activate black cavity. But what a pity. This skill is unique to voids. Just open your eyes and watch me leave. You are just so weak and weak. Keha. Beilegan laughed unscrupulously, as if only this could dispel the depression in his heart. He touched the top of his head gloomily, and a footprint that would never disappear made him vomit blood. I will definitely settle this debt with you in the future. Beilegan's nondescript voice was filled with the madness of perishing together. The captains all looked at the skull that was pierced through by the footprint. The mark was almost exactly the same as Dustless's right foot, and they all smiled. In the future? Let's end it now, Dustless said lazily. Beilegan sneered. And when he was about to mock Dustless, the world in front of him became completely dark, and the connection to the outside world was cut off. The black cavity was completely closed. Damn brat. Huh. What is going on? The black cavity was closed, and Beilegan was about to curse Dustless. But the void was distorted like a whirlpool, and the space was torn apart by some invisible force. Beilegan instinctively felt something was wrong, and when he was about to turn around and enter Hueco Mundo, a powerful shout ignored the existence of the dimensional barrier and crossed the layers of space into Beilegan's ears. Kamui. There was a warm light behind him, and the incomparably dark deep space was instantly bright and warm. Beilegan could even breathe the fresh air of Soul Society. He turned his head stiffly like a machine, and looked at the smiling Dustless. Beilegan's mouth full of fangs formed an O shape, tearing the space, creating a space-time resonance. This is one of the abilities of my Zanpakuto. Without waiting for anyone to ask, Dustless sealed their mouths with a sentence. The only people who knew that Dustless didn't have a Zanpakuto were the Zero Squad in the Spirit King Palace. This casual sentence directly petrified Beilegan. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. An afterimage rushed out at the speed of light, and even Dustless could see a vague outline. Boom! A merciless heavy kick landed, and Beilegan was kicked out of the torn space. His spiritual pressure erupted, and he was about to fight with all his might, but the captains surrounded him. The initiator was the captain of the second squad, Soifeng. Clang clang clang. More than a dozen swords were drawn, and the captains pulled out their swords at the same time, staring at Beilegan with unfriendly eyes. Soul Society was attacked by Hueco Mundo and suffered heavy losses. This king of Hueco Mundo was the culprit. Just when everyone was about to gang up on Beilegan, a figure resolutely blocked in front of Beilegan. It's him? What does this guy want? Frowning, Dustless began to guess the purpose of the person in front of him. Chapter 961. The person who stood up for Beilegan was the current 5th Division captain, Sosuke Aizen. Dustless laughed inwardly. He had already guessed Aizen's intentions. He quickly came up with a plan. Captain Aizen, Beilegan is an enemy who wants to destroy Soul Society. It's not right for you to speak up for him. Or perhaps, you were the one behind Hueco Mundo's perfect invasion. Aizen Sosuke's eyes twitched when he heard this. He almost couldn't help but raise his sword to chop this bastard who deliberately attacked him, especially since he had exposed him in front of so many captains. After hearing Dustless's words, all the captains looked at Sosuke Aizen suspiciously. This guy suddenly stood in front of Beilegan. It would be strange if they didn't suspect him. Vice Captain Dustless, don't speculate. Captain Aizen's loyalty to Soul Society is clear as day. Dongsung scolded angrily. Also, you're just a vice captain. How dare you criticize the captain? Who gave you the guts? Did someone order you to do this? Everyone knew how to use dirty words. Dongsung was no exception. Idiot. Sosuke Aizen was expressionless, but he was cursing in his heart. Dongsung's words were pointing at Unohana Retsu. Over the past 1,000 years, Unohualai's loyalty to Soul Society was well known. Sure enough, just as Aizen expected, Unohana's calm eyes rippled with displeasure. Her lips trembled slightly. Just as she was about to speak, someone else took Unohana's place to teach Dongsung a lesson. Captain Dongsung, please pay attention to your words and your status. I don't want to hear such childish words a second time. Yamamoto's tone was filled with dissatisfaction. Unohana Retsu had fought with him for 1,000 years. Her loyalty to Soul Society was unquestionable. I'm sorry, Captain Unohana. I misspoke, Sir Head Captain. Realizing that something was wrong, East Deity hurriedly apologized humbly. Deputy Captain Wu Chun. This is not a place where a deputy captain like you can meddle in. Seeing that his good friend was being reprimanded, Xiao Xiyuan's immediately stood up and pointed the spearhead at Wu Chun. No wonder this big idiot was used. Dustless glanced at Sakumura with pity, but he was too lazy to pay attention to him. He looked straight at Aizen Sosuke. This guy was inexplicably covering up for Bailey, so he was definitely up to no good. Chunkuan is right. Captain Aizen should give a reasonable explanation. Unohana Retsu smiled and supported Dustless. Of course. I will give you a reasonable explanation. Aizen replied calmly. After organizing his words, he continued. As you all know, Beigen is the king of Hueco Mundo. Imprisoning him is far more valuable than killing him. Aizen raised his eyebrows and continued. Even if we kill Beigen, Hueco Mundo will give birth to another king. Why don't we just control him and use him? The king of Hueco Mundo will give him face. I agree. I need a greater void to conduct experiments. It's not convenient to enter Hueco Mundo. With the king of Hueco Mundo's help, it'll be much easier to capture experimental materials. Mayuri laughed. I don't agree. Someone suddenly said. Dustless opened his mouth and organized his thoughts to attack Aizen. However, someone had stolen his script, and it was someone he never expected. Captain Withered, what do you think is inappropriate? Aizen didn't get angry. He always had a nice face. This had become a habit of his. No matter who or what he faced, he always had a smile on his face. Wu Chun looked at Shiomubaya in surprise. He swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth, and continued to close his eyes calmly. We're Shinigami, and he's the king of Hueco Mundo. That's all. Byakuya said briefly, as if every word was valuable. He didn't want to say more. I also agree with Captain Shiomu's point of view. With the powerful Vasto Lord in Soul Society, even if Captain Nya can develop a tool to limit Bailey's spiritual pressure, I don't think it's safe. This is a blasphemy to the death gods who died in Hueco Mundo. Unohana raised her voice and wrinkled her nose. She was very dissatisfied with Aizen's suggestion. This old guy is just stalling for time. When the time is right, he'll probably let Beigen go. Dustless looked at Aizen from the corner of his eyes. He understood Aizen's intentions. Aizen needed to use his identity as the king of Hueco Mundo to manage Hueco Mundo, so he couldn't afford to lose him. He couldn't go to Hueco Mundo to be the king. He didn't have the time, and he didn't have the conditions. He might be able to in the future, but not now. You want to protect Beigen? Stop dreaming, silly child. No matter how hard you try, he'll die, and he'll die in front of you. Dustless sneered in his heart. Yamamoto also had a headache. The captains were clearly divided into two factions. He didn't know which side they supported. How about this? Sosuke Aizen's tone was filled with absolute rationality, making people involuntarily believe him, but when it fell on Dustless's ears, it was very strange, with a hint of conspiracy. How about we let the Central 46 Sages decide? You're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.